the technological template of Konoha. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story in all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 76 Iwa Ninja Attack 2. Lord Huangtu, we suffered a total of 112 dead and 163 wounded, 105 of whom were seriously injured and most can no longer serve as ninjas. Hearing his subordinate's report, Huangtu gritted his teeth, desperately suppressing the urge to seek revenge. Seeing Huangtu struggling to control himself, Yekun walked to his side and calmly said, "Yu Guanghan must die, otherwise he will bring us unimaginable casualties. If we fail to kill him this time and allow him to enter the main battlefield, given his bloodline limit, the consequences." Yekun didn't finish his sentence, but Huangtu already understood his meaning. While furious, he couldn't help but feel a pang of worry. If they failed to kill Yu Guanghan this time, and he joined the main battlefield, the Iwa ninja would likely suffer a crushing defeat. How much information are you Tsunagakure hiding? If we, the Iwagakure, lose, your Tsunagakure will have no chance of victory either. Huangtu glared at Yekun. At this moment, he was like a dead man, harboring a deep hatred for Tsunagakure. Tsunagakure's tactic of diverting blame successfully dragged Iwagakure into the mess as well. So, the first thing we need to think about now is how to kill Gekko-han, Yekura said. Ignoring Huangtu's anger, the plan had succeeded, and no matter how unwilling Huangtu was, it was a fact. Hell, Huangtu's teeth were practically grinding to powder as he looked at Yekura, but as Yekura said, the most advantageous thing for Iwagakure at the moment was to continue their alliance with Tsunagakure, kill Gekko-han, and defeat Konoha. Will using Earth Release really work? Trying hard to suppress his anger, Huangtu asked Yekura almost word by word. Knowing that Gekko-han's ranged attacks posed a significant threat, they had initially planned to first approach to the edge of Gekko-han's furthest attack range and then use Earth Release to get close. However, they hadn't expected Gekko-han's attack range to be twice as far as their intelligence indicated. Now, he even doubted whether this method would actually work. We and Tsunagakure have used this method before. Relying on the Earth can indeed block Moonlight Hand's long-range attacks. However, Yekura said confidently. However, what? Huangtu asked, not wanting to miss any more information about Moonlight Hand's abilities. However, this method cannot evade perception. It can only get you within 100 meters of a Konoha ninja at most, otherwise you know the consequences, Yekura said solemnly, and that 100 meters is not easy to get close to. At close range, Moonlight Hand's killing speed is much faster than you imagine. Unless we lure him out alone, but that is almost impossible. Isn't there any better way? Huangtu asked, not trusting Yekura. No, Yekura shook his head and said, this time I've told you all the information I know about him without reservation. If there really was a better way, do you think I would still be here now? HMPH, Huangtu snorted coldly. But he also knew that what Yekura said was true. If Tsunagakure really had a better way, how could they have been forced to feign surrender by Moonlight Han? It seems we still have to rely on the method provided by Tsunagakure. However, the distance has increased from 10 kilometers to 20 kilometers. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the whistling of heavy artillery echoed through the forest, tracing parabolic arcs as it struck the forest several kilometers away. Boom 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 explosions resounded continuously in the forest, as relentless as the rolling thunder of a stormy night. Trees were snapped in half, and craters were blasted into the ground. The surrounding trees were also ignited by the flames of the continuous explosions, and the forest fire raged. Underground, in the tunnels excavated by the Earth Release of the Iwa ninja, feeling the tremors from the ground, whether it was Huangtu, Yikang, or ordinary Iwa and Tsunagakure ninja, they all breathed a long sigh of relief. It was unimaginable what heavy price they would pay for launching an attack from the ground under such a fierce assault. Unlike ninjutsu, although the destructive power of the cannonball explosion on the ground is similar to, or even slightly less than, that of the fireball jutsu, the destructive power of the cannonball explosion is far beyond what the fireball jutsu can match. After all, the fireball jutsu relies on combustion, while the explosion relies on an instantaneous shockwave and a large number of shrapnel projectiles flying like bullets, What's going on? Near the Tenchi Bridge, in the Konoha's base, Gecko Han, who was controlling 15K-16 cannons for a saturation bombardment, frowned. In Gecko Han's perception, several markers buried among the Iwen ninja were constantly approaching this direction. Although their speed was slow, they were still advancing methodically, seemingly unaffected by his artillery fire. Even when Gecko Han concentrated his attack on a single marked point, he still couldn't kill the Iwen ninja carrying his locator. Then Gecko Han adjusted the cannons and bombarded the Iwen ninja approaching from several other directions, but the result was still the same. Even with the eastern dead man's side, the heavy bombardment was completely ineffective. After 3 minutes of bombardment, Yu Guanghan ceased his futile attack. He knew that the Iwen ninja had found a way to counter his ranged attacks, most likely through burrowing underground. Lightning release, earth walk. The moment Yu Guanghan stopped attacking, without his command, the 130 lightning-released ninja standing behind him immediately formed hand seals. A large amount of electricity flowed through the steel wires connected to their hands to Yu Guanghan, replenishing the energy points he had consumed in the past 3 minutes. This wasn't the first time they had done this. Han, what's wrong? After the lightning-released ninja stopped, Yu Guangxingai immediately stepped forward and asked Yu Guanghan. He knew a bit about Yu Guanghan's bloodline limit. It couldn't possibly last only 3 minutes, especially since Yu Guanghan was frowning. The Iwen ninja have all burrowed underground. I can't attack them while they're underground. Now I can only wait for them to get close and force them out, Yu Guanghan said, shaking his head. He was quite troubled. Should we retreat for now? Upon hearing this, Moonlight Hoshino frowned deeply and asked Moonlight Han. He knew that burrowing underground could evade Moonlight Han's attacks, but now that they had lost Moonlight Han's long-range, high-powered attacks, they feared a very difficult battle was about to begin, and they had lost confidence in their ability to hold this place. No, without defenses, we will only be more passive. Upon hearing this, Moonlight Han shook his head and said. The surrounding area was full of forests, which greatly limited their weapon templates. And the Iwen ninjas were surrounding them from several directions, clearly intending to encircle and annihilate them, giving them no chance to retreat. In fact, the Iwen ninjas were eager for them to leave as soon as possible. Without strong fortifications and numerous traps around them, they would be more easily devoured by the Iwen ninjas. Chapter 77 Iwen Ninja Attack 3. Lord Huangtu, we can't go any further. Inside the tunnel created by Earth Release, when they were still 150 meters from the Konoha ninja's base, an Iwen ninja using the Earth Reflection technique said to Huangtu. Continuing forward was too risky. If Konoha ninja rushed out of the base and used Earth Release to destroy the tunnel, they might not have time to react, which was extremely dangerous. Let's stop here for now. Once we get out, everyone must immediately begin defense. Huangtu checked his watch and loudly ordered the Iwen ninja in the tunnel. When they emerged from underground, they would likely face Gecko Han's most ferocious attack. To achieve their operational objectives and minimize casualties, the Iwen ninja coming from several directions had agreed on a unified attack time, at the Tenchi Bridge, inside the Konoha base. Having guessed the Iwen ninja's method of countering his ranged attacks, Gecko Han had ordered the Konoha ninja to construct a massive rock pillar, 30 meters high and 30 meters in diameter, in the very center of the base. Meanwhile, Yu Guanghan sat cross-legged at the very center of the pillar. At the edge of the pillar, Hyuga Tokugawa, Hyugami, and Hyuga Ryu each stood in a different direction, closely watching the movements of the Iwen ninja who were digging tunnels from 3 directions, constantly reporting back to Yu Guanghan. Below the pillar, in the Konoha garrison's defensive positions, 550 Konoha ninja were prepared for a desperate battle, even if it meant certain death. Even Yu Guanghan's 50 lightning release guards were deployed there to fight alongside them. This time, they would face an attack from 10 times their number of enemies, and their task was to ensure that the enemy did not reach the pillar or destroy it. Sir, the Iwen ninja have stopped, about 400 meters away. Their numbers are about 3,000, Hyuga Tokugawa, who had been monitoring the Iwen ninja's movements with his Byakugan activated, reported to Yu Guanghan from the edge of the pillar. Sir, my Iwen ninja have also stopped, about 400 meters away. About 1,000 men. A few minutes later, Hyuga Mai reported to Gecko Han. Sir, mine too, about 400 meters away. About 1,200 men, including the 600 Iwen ninja led by Higashi no Shijin, Hyuga Ryu reported similarly. All three men spoke with deep worry and a sense of grim determination. Within half an hour, the three Iwa ninja forces had reached within 400 meters of the pillar and stopped at the distance. The total force of over 5,200 Iwa ninja surrounded the Konoha ninjas' base on three sides. HMPH. The Iwa ninja are really willing to go to great lengths to eliminate us. Hearing this, Gecko Han sneered, saying, they plan to attack from three directions simultaneously, using their greatest advantage to capture this place and annihilate us all. Such a large number of ninja was enough for a large-scale ninja battle. This was almost half of the Iwa ninja on the front lines. Despite their overwhelming numerical advantage, the Iwa ninja opted for a cautious approach, concentrating their strength to annihilate the enemy in one fell swoop. However, we're not unprepared, Moonlight Han said with a cold smile, launching 10 DJI drones. Knowing that the Iwa ninja had deployed a large number of troops to reclaim the Tenchi Bridge, Moonlight Han was not unprepared. While his storage limit of 500,000 wasn't fully replenished, he still had 400,000 energy points to spare. Rumble. 10 minutes later, the ground began to tremble. From three directions, 150 meters away from the Konoha ninja base, the ground began to sink, forming three trenches surrounding the base. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, as soon as the trenches formed, countless kunai shot out from the Konoha base, many with ignited explosive tags attached. A ninja's strength far surpasses that of an ordinary person, and with extensive practice in kunai throwing kunai 150 meters is not impossible. Earth release, earth wall, and walls of earth rose before the three trenches created by the Iwa ninja, layer upon layer blocking their path. Thud 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 boom boom boom. The sound of kunai striking the earthen walls mingled with the continuous explosions of explosive tags, thick smoke and dust filling the air, obscuring everything beyond. Kill! A deafening battle cry echoed through the trenches surrounding the Konoha stronghold. Hidden by the smoke and dust, the Iwa ninja emerged from the tunnels like ants, but they only spread within the trenches surrounding the Konoha stronghold, not venturing beyond them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a dense barrage of kunai shot out from the trenches surrounding the Konoha camp, piercing through the thick dust and hurtling towards the Konoha positions on the edge of the camp. The number of kunai fired by the Konoha ninja earlier was more than 10 times greater. Boom! Before the dust covering the Iwa ninja could dissipate, violent explosions engulfed the Konoha ninja's defensive positions. Charge! Shouts echoed from the dust-covered Iwa ninja trenches. Kill! A deafening battle cry rang out. With both sides' positions shrouded in thick dust, over 5,200 Iwa and Sand ninja finally burst from their hiding places, screaming and charging with all their might towards the Konoha defensive positions 150 meters away. The rats hiding underground have finally shown themselves, atop a 30-meter-high pillar. As the enemy charged, Moonlight Han revealed a bloodthirsty smile. He rose from his seated position, placed his hands on the cylindrical column, and closed his eyes. 100 M249 light machine guns. As Yurguang Han's hands touched the column, a row of light machine gun turrets instantly appeared along the edge of the 30-meter diameter column. A full 100 light machine guns aimed at the massive cloud of smoke in three directions, targeting the Iwa ninja charging through it. The Iwa ninja's idea of using the smoke to charge was good, but unfortunately, they encountered Yurguang Han, who possessed infrared thermal imaging. The figures of the Iwa and Suna ninjas were completely exposed to the cameras of the 10 DJI drones flying high in the sky. Rat-a-tat-tat, incredibly loud gunfire erupted from the column, as loud, dense, and boisterous as firecrackers at the end of the year. Under Yurguang Han's close-eye control, the 100 M249 light machine guns on the column simultaneously spewed out dense tongues of fire. A rain of metal bullets, like a storm, poured into the smoke, obscuring the Iwa ninjas at a rate of 1,200 per second. Defend! Amidst the dense gunfire, an anxious shout rang out from the smoke and dust. Ye Kang, who had once faced the Moonlight Han light machine gun, felt a sharp pain in his heart. Unfortunately, his shout was too late, drowned out by the deafening battle cries. PFFT. 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 Countless pillars of blood and bits of flesh bloomed like crimson cherry blossoms in the smoke and dust. One after another, Iwa and Sand ninjas fell, blood spurting from their bodies, until death. Many of them didn't understand how they died. Continuous screams echoed through the smoke and dust, the piercing cries almost matching the deafening battle cries. Sadly, concealed by the smoke and dust, the charging Iwa and Sand ninjas heard the heart-wrenching screams but had no idea what was happening. They only knew that their comrades were constantly being wounded and killed. The Iwa and Sand Ninjas never imagined that what they intended to use as cover for their charge would become the enemy's greatest asset and their demise. Chapter 78 Template upgraded again. Fire release, Fire Dragon Bullet, Water release, Water Dragon Bullet, Wind release, Great Breakthrough, Wind release, Beast Wave Palm, Water release, Water Wall, Earth release, Earth Dragon Bullet Technique, Earth release, Rock Iron Cannon Technique, Lightning release, False Darkness, Earth release, Earth Wall. Almost every second, 500 ninjutsu of various elements flew around in the smoke and dust, dragons and tigers constantly tumbling and roaring within it. Countless kunai mixed with explosive tags continuously weaved through the dust. Strong winds and shockwaves dispersed the thick smoke and dust, which was then stirred up by the various ninjutsu, making the smoke and dust even denser. Screams echoed and stopped incessantly within the smoke and dust. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat, on a 30-meter-high pillar, 100 machine guns continued to roar incessantly, streams of crimson bullets raining down into the thick smoke and dust. In a short time, 20,000 bullets had been unleashed. In this battlefield where people died every second, 150 meters was neither close nor far. Blocked by Konoha ninjas and amidst a hail of ninjutsu and kunai, the desperately charging Iwa ninja took a full 20 seconds to reach Konoha's lines and engage in battle. In the chaos, ninjutsu ceased its flying, kunai stopped their indiscriminate firing, and the sounds of explosive tags ceased. In the smoke-shrouded melee, even direction was difficult to discern. No one could guarantee their attacks wouldn't accidentally injure their own. Even Moonlight Hand's bullets avoided the main battleground, focusing instead on those still fighting in Konoha's lines. Earth release, Rock Fist. In the smoke, Wang Tu killed a Konoha ninja in the melee with a single punch, but instead of joy at the kill, he frowned deeply. The frown wasn't because he had shattered the substitute or killed the clone, but because the gunfire was still echoing. Despite having 10 times the manpower, they hadn't gained any advantage. In fact, their casualties were far greater than Konoha's. Scorching release, Steam Kill. Yikang, having dried the moisture from a Konoha ninja's body, came to Wang Tu's side and said anxiously, Moonlight Tan is on the central pillar. His bloodline limit is too lethal to us. We must attack it or destroy it first, otherwise the casualties will be too great. Even if we manage to recapture the Heavenly Bridge and wipe out these Konoha ninjas, our casualties will exceed 2,000, or even more. To counter Moonlight Hand's ranged attacks, they had planned such a large amount of smoke and dust, mixing the battle with the Konoha ninjas to prevent Moonlight Han from distinguishing friend from foe. However, this also made it difficult for them to orient themselves in the smoke and dust. Now, almost everyone was fighting individually or in small groups, and even organization was extremely difficult. And the strange sound showed no signs of stopping or weakening. Even if Moonlight Han disregarded the Konoha ninjas in the melee, with the two sides outnumbering each other 10-1, their casualties would be far greater than those of the Konoha ninjas. We must press on and kill Moonlight Han first. Pakura of the Sand Village, have your ninjas disperse the smoke and dust, and charge towards the central pillar with all your might. Kill Moonlight Han first. Upon hearing this, Wang Tu immediately instructed Pakura. Yes. Pakura nodded immediately and shouted loudly across the battlefield, all Sand Village ninjas, immediately use wind release to disperse the smoke and dust on the battlefield and charge towards the central pillar with all your might. Use wind release to disperse the smoke and dust on the battlefield and charge towards the central pillar with all your might. With Pakura's shouts echoed continuously from within the yellow-black smoke and dust. The Sand and Iwa ninjas quickly relayed the orders. Wind release, Great Breakthrough, and a gale, like a typhoon, raged through the smoke and dust of the battle, blowing in all directions like turbulent currents. The billowing dust, carried away by gusts of wind, gradually dissipated from the chaotic battlefield, revealing the scattered corpses and the wailing wounded from both sides. All Iwagakure ninja attacked the central pillar first. Seeing the dust settle and the central pillar of the Konoha stronghold becoming visible, Wang Tu, without even checking the casualties, immediately ordered the attack on the central pillar. He himself was the first to charge towards it. Therefore, Sunagakure ninja, attack the central pillar first, kill Yu Guanghan, and avenge our fallen comrades, Yi Kang shouted, leading a group of Sunagakure ninja towards the central pillar. Kill! The battle cries echoed again, and with their commands, most of the Iwagakure and Sunagakure ninja charged towards the central pillar like a swarm of ants. Stop them with all your might. Don't let any enemy get past. Hold on, everyone. By Lord Han, time to attack. Lord Han will definitely wipe them out. Victory will surely be ours. Shouts echoed among the Konoha ninja as they charged forward again in a frenzy. As the dust settled, everyone went into berserk mode, desperately attacking and defending. On the cylindrical platform, spent bullet casings covered its edge and continued to roll down. As the dust cleared and the two sides clashed in a fierce melee, the constant hissing and sweeping fire of the M249 machine guns turned into bursts of fire. With the fierce fighting, the situation began to turn critical for the Konoha ninja. The Konoha ninja retreated step by step towards the bottom of the platform, while the enemy drew ever closer. If it weren't for the immense threat posed by Moonlight Hand's abilities, which suppressed them and forced them to defend repeatedly, the Iwa and Sand ninja would likely have already reached the top. Ding! With a crisp ringing sound, the long-awaited voice finally rang in Yu Guang'an's mind. I never thought what I was lacking was this. Ha ha ha! Hearing the voice in his mind, Yu Guang'an was stunned for a moment, then burst into wild laughter. What? Hearing Yu Guang'an's wild laughter, the ninjas fighting nearby couldn't help but divert their attention. Destroy the platform at all costs. Hearing the wild laughter coming from the platform, Wang Tu and Yikang's hearts tightened, and they shouted loudly, guess what's missing? Chapter 79. Now it's my turn to perform solo. After a burst of wild laughter, Yu Guang'an walked step by step to the edge of the cylindrical platform. Watching him reach the edge, Wang Tu and Yikang's hearts tightened, worried that Yu Guang'an might have some other tricks up his sleeve. Hyuga Tokugawa, retreat to the edge of the cliff immediately and activate the final defense plan. Execute the order immediately, Yu Guang'an commanded Hyuga Tokugawa upon reaching the edge of the platform. His tone was stern, leaving no room for objection. But, faced with Yu Guang'an's unquestionable order, Hyuga Tokugawa could only reluctantly obey, urging Hyuga Mei and Hyuga Ryu to quickly retreat towards the cliff. The final defense Yu Guang'an spoke of was his last resort. Nearly 4,000 explosive tags were embedded in the cylindrical structure of the platform. Besides the 3,000 captured tags, there were over 1,000 more brought from the Sand Village battlefield during the reinforcement mission. These tags filled an entire box, which was placed on the platform. All Konoha ninja, heed my command. After Hyuga Tokugawa left, Gekko Han looked at the fierce battle raging below the cylindrical platform and shouted at the top of his lungs, now, activate the final defense plan. This is an order. If he could, Gekko Han would not want to carry out this final defense plan, because it was essentially a desperate, all-or-nothing scheme. With Gekko Han's shout, the Sand Ninja, Iwa Ninja, Pakura, and Kyoto Ninja, still engaged in the melee, all became extremely vigilant. Even their fighting became somewhat distracted, ready to respond to any unexpected situation. No one believed that this ominous-sounding final defense plan would be without danger. On the contrary, as ninjas, they had seen far too many desperate, all-or-nothing scenarios. Puff puff puff, while the enemy was distracted by Gekko Han's shout, the Konoha ninja in the fierce battle seized upon the plan Gekko Han had created for them, successively taking out smoke bombs from their ninja pouches and throwing them on the ground. Thick, grayish-black smoke immediately filled the chaotic battlefield. Seeing the gray-black smoke enveloping the battlefield, the Iwa and Suna ninja dared not make any rash moves. They remained in the smoke, constantly on guard, some even retreating to the rear and reforming their formation. Without words, without sound, without flying ninjutsu or kune, all the Konoha ninja in the smoke silently retreated rapidly towards the cliff. HMPH. Suna ninja, Iwa ninja, observing the retreating Konoha ninja through infrared light, Yu Guang'an sneered, opened the box full of explosive tags on the high platform, and ignited it with hand seals. Although this final defensive plan was actually a desperate, all-or-nothing scheme, now that he had met his requirements, the plan wouldn't be a complete disaster. It was time for his solo performance, even though doing so would almost completely expose his current abilities, because the smoke had been dispersed by wind release, he could discern directions. After igniting the explosive tags, Yu Guang'an transformed into liquid metal, encasing all the tags. He could now perfectly absorb thermal and kinetic energy, perfectly converting the 4,000 explosive tags into energy points. Combined with his remaining 300,000 energy points, this should be enough to meet the requirements for a breakthrough, with some left over. Although he didn't know what new template he would get after the upgrade, it would definitely be more powerful than his current self, and Moonlight Han still had a final trump card. This was Moonlight Hand's confidence. Boom! The violent explosions of the explosive tags echoed continuously within Moonlight Hand's body. Unfortunately, no matter how loudly the tags exploded, they had no effect on Moonlight Han. The flames were absorbed as thermal energy, and the shock waves were completely absorbed as kinetic energy. The explosions of the 4,000 tags didn't even cause a ripple in Moonlight Hand's liquid body. Even the sound of the explosions was relatively quiet because they were absorbed. Time passed, second by second. However, the massive explosion that the Konoha ninjas had anticipated did not occur, and the danger that the Iwa and Suna ninjas had foreseen did not materialize. What is this? As the smoke cleared, everyone was stunned to see the figure standing in the center. It was Yu Guanghan, standing alone before the Konoha ninja, facing over 3,500 enemy ninja. Yu Guanghan. If you surrender now, we can spare the Konoha ninja behind you, Wang Tu said, though his hands remained in the final hand seal of Earth release. Clearly, he already knew of Yu Guanghan's ability to instantly kill from Yakura, and had witnessed the trouble and terror of Yu Guanghan's bloodline limit. He dared not be careless in the slightest. No, that's what I should be saying to you. Hearing this, Moonlight Han sneered and shouted in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, if you're willing to surrender, I don't mind keeping you all as prisoners, arrogant. You and the less than 200 Konoha ninja behind you? Don't make me laugh, Wang Tu sneered and shouted, I'll give you one last chance, otherwise you won't have a chance to back out later. With Wang Tu's words, all the Iwa and Suna ninja prepared to attack. Actually, Wang Tu didn't want to say such things. He didn't even want to spare Moonlight Han. He wanted to tear this executioner, who had killed so many of their ninja, apart alive. His heart was bleeding. In just that short time of fighting, of the original 5,200, only 3,500 remained standing, a loss of nearly 1,700. Those 500 Konoha ninja, facing 10 times their number of Suna and Iwa ninja, could only be overwhelmed and couldn't inflict much damage. At least 1,500 of their men had been killed by Moonlight Han. With such terrifying bloodline limits, he would absolutely not allow Yu Guanghan to continue living, nor would he allow any member of the Yu Guang clan here to survive. Yu Guanghan's bloodline limits were truly terrifying to him. If he could lure and kill Yu Guanghan, he could at least reduce the sacrifice of some of his subordinates. Hero Yekan of Sunagakure, we meet again. It was a real pity you escaped last time. Yu Guanghan ignored Wang Tu and instead looked at Yekan and the Sunagakure ninja he led. He said happily, but seeing you here is truly a joyful thing. HMPH, Yekan snorted coldly. He mocked, even if you know the truth, so what? Those idiots in Konoha's higher-ups have already sent you here. Yes, Yu Guanghan said with a smile, I really have to thank them, otherwise how would I have encountered you damn Sunagakure ninjas here? This is good news, Yu Guanghan, stop trying to stall for time. Are you going to surrender or not? Wang Tu impatiently interrupted Yu Guanghan and Yekan's conversation. Surrender or not? Following Wang Tu's words, the Iwa and Sand ninja behind him shouted in unison. My lord, we are willing to follow you to the underworld, we swear to never surrender. Behind Yu Guanghan, the Konoha ninja also shouted, beginning to advance. In their view, the final plan had failed. You all step back, just protect yourselves, Yu Guanghan shouted as the Konoha ninja began to advance. Then he declared loudly, now it's my turn to act alone. No one is allowed to interfere without my orders, or they will be punished according to military law. Chapter 80 Megatron. If you want me to surrender, defeat me first, Megatron. After stopping the Konoha ninja behind him, Moonlight Han roared, and his entire body began to transform. His body began to swell, growing larger and larger like a building block, and his entire flesh turned into a grayish-yellow metal, reflecting a golden glow in the sunlight. What is this? Everyone was stunned as they watched Moonlight Han's metallic body roll and change, growing larger and larger. Even the Konoha ninja were dumbfounded. No one had ever imagined that a person of flesh and blood could transform into such a metal being. This was not a transformation jutsu, it was something they had never seen or heard of before. It completely shattered their worldview. Stop him, Wang Tu shouted urgently as the metallic body grew larger and larger. Moonlight Han was using such bizarre techniques against thousands of ninjas, it was definitely not a simple ninjutsu. Earth release, rock iron cannon, water release, water whip, wind release, wind cutter. Upon hearing this, the Iwa and Sand ninjas immediately unleashed a multitude of three elemental ninjutsu, determined to drown Moonlight Han before he could complete his techniques. Too late. With a shout, Moonlight Han transformed into a gigantic steel giant. Before the onslaught of 3 elemental ninjutsu, the massive steel body leaped into the sky, transforming into a jet-powered Cybertronian fighter jet with a mechanical roar. 2 long plumes of flame shot from its tail, and in the blink of an eye, it flew out of the range of the numerous ninjutsu, reaching hundreds of meters away in the sky, rapidly disappearing into the distance. Within 2 or 3 seconds, it had become an inconspicuous dot. What was that, so fast? The speed of Moonlight Han's Megatron form once again stunned all the ninjas. Even with 4 extra legs, they couldn't catch up to such speed, let alone someone flying. They couldn't even reach him. Is he escaping? Wang Tu and Yu Kang stared at each other in astonishment as Moonlight Han disappeared into the horizon. At that speed, what's the point of surrounding him? If he wanted to leave, he could escape in the blink of an eye. Mach 1 is the speed of sound. Mach 2.5 equals 850 meters per second, a speed almost faster than the initial velocity of a cannonball. Of course, the initial speed isn't that fast. He's turning back, an Iwe ninja said, looking at the sky. 2,000 meters away, Moonlight Han, transformed into Megatron, circled around and flew rapidly towards them. Not good, defend. Seeing Moonlight Han return, Wang Tu immediately shouted. He immediately activated the Earth barrier. Moonlight Han had made a bold statement earlier, and now, having clearly escaped far away, he's flying back. Obviously, this huge thing not only has extremely high speed but also likely possesses formidable attack power. The buzzing of large-caliber aircraft machine guns echoed through the sky, sending dust billowing high into 2 trails on the ground. Even the earthen walls were easily torn open. Along with them were the Iwe and Sand ninjas standing on those trails. Their bodies were easily ripped in 2 by the powerful aerial bullets. Although Wang Tu's shout was timely, the Moonlight Han aircraft arrived far too quickly, and the power of the aircraft machine guns was immense. Many ninjas didn't even have time to defend themselves before being torn in 2 by the dense barrage of large-caliber bullets. Even those who did defend themselves found that the earthen walls couldn't withstand the penetration of the large-caliber aerial bullets. Meanwhile, Moonlight Han, after his dive-bombing attack, had already soared into the distance again. In just 2 or 3 seconds, he had unleashed nearly 100 bullets, leaving only 2 paths, 30 or 40 meters long, paved with blood and gore, and the screams of ninjas with severed limbs. Even if the Iwe and Sand ninjas wanted to retaliate, they had no chance. They couldn't even reach Moonlight Han, who was at least 200 or 300 meters in the air. Infiltrate among those Konoha ninjas. Capture as many as possible. Looking at Moonlight Han flying back in the distance, Wang Tu and Yu Kang quickly analyzed the situation and issued the same order. Their situation was now extremely unfavorable. If they didn't infiltrate among the Konoha ninjas and make Moonlight Han hesitant to attack, they would be forced to take the hits, and even retreating would be extremely difficult. Kill. Hearing Wang Tu and Yu Kang's order, most of the Iwe and Sand ninjas understood and immediately charged towards the Konoha ninjas near the cliff edge. If they didn't mingle with the Konoha ninja, making Yu Guanghan hesitant to act, then they would face Yu Guanghan's slaughter. Hold them off at all costs, don't let them get close. Seeing the howling enemies charging towards them, Yu Guangzinga understood and immediately shouted commands to the remaining less than 200 Konoha ninja. HMPH. Want to start another melee? Not so easy. In the sky, Yu Guanghan, turning back, watched the Iwa and Suna ninjas rush towards the remaining Konoha ninjas, and with a cold smile, swooped down on them again. 2 aerial bombs, each 3 meters long, 80 centimeters in diameter, and weighing 1,500 kilograms, materialized out of thin air in the fuselage. 2 heavy aerial incendiary bombs. As Yu Guanghan swooped down, only 100 meters above the ground, the hooks on the fuselage finally released, and the 2 aerial incendiary bombs detached from the fuselage one after the other. Yu Guanghan then gained altitude and soared into the sky again. Get out of the way, Wang Tu shouted anxiously, watching the object thrown by the monstrous Moonlight Man hurtling towards the ground. Its size indicated immense power. At the same time, he rapidly formed hand seals, and a pillar of earth rose from the ground, blocking the path of the incendiary bomb. Bang! Boom! The next second, the newly risen earth pillar was smashed in 2 by the rapidly approaching incendiary bomb. The bomb exploded in midair, crimson flames pouring down like a horizontal waterfall, igniting the ground ahead and creating a sea of fire that stretched for 50 meters. Another incendiary bomb landed with tremendous force, exploding and spreading even further. Damn it! The charging Iwa and Sand Ninja stopped, furious at the sea of fire blocking their path. Go around to both sides, Wang Tu's anxious voice rang out from behind the Iwa and Sand Ninjas. Looking at the raging fire, his urgency grew even stronger. Boom! However, before the Iwa and Sand Ninjas could act, Yu Guanghan, who had already returned, dropped 2 more heavy incendiary bombs. A 200-meter-long fire completely isolated the Iwa, Sand, and Konoha ninjas. The protagonist has a calculation system, allowing for very precise bomb throwing. Chapter 81 Victory. Use Earth Release to extinguish the fire. Seeing the sea of fire blocking their ninja's path, Wang Tu immediately gave the order. Earth Release, Earth Flow River. More than 20 Iwa ninja Jonin pressed their hands to the ground simultaneously, and the earth instantly surged towards the fire like a mudslide. The higher the level of the ninjutsu, the longer the preparation and casting time, and the greater the energy consumption. This is while lower level ninjutsu appear more frequently. At a typical speed of 3 to 5 hand seals per second, casting a ninjutsu in front of Yu Guanghan will take too long and be almost impossible. Danger! Get out of the way! An anxious shout rang out behind the 20 Iwa ninja Jonin. In the sky, Yu Guanghan had already turned back and was rapidly swooping down towards them. In front of Yu Guanghan, 2 rockets, trailing white tails, were hurtling towards them at high speed, their target being the 20 Iwa ninja Jonin using Earth Flow River. Hearing the shout, the 20 Iwa ninja Jonin didn't dare hesitate for a moment. They immediately stopped their ninjutsu and used the body flicker technique to scatter in all directions. Although they couldn't see it, they knew without a doubt that Moonlight Han had returned and launched an attack. The speed and threat of Moonlight Han's attack had already made them tremble with fear, leaving them no room for hesitation. Whoosh! Unfortunately, before these Iwa ninja could scatter very far, 2 rockets, only airborne rockets, landed with a whooshing sound. The flames and smoke from the explosions instantly engulfed them, and the shockwaves even scraped off a layer of the surrounding ground. Thump thump! 2 loud thuds echoed as Moonlight Han, transformed into a Cybertronian fighter jet, transformed in the sky into Megatron's humanoid form and landed steadily. His 60-ton body easily crushed a patch of ground. With a flick of his wrist, a 6-meter-long giant hammer appeared in his hand. He's landed. Seize the opportunity, Wang Tu's shout rang out behind the Iwa and Sand Ninja. Kill! Accompanied by shouts of battle cries, thousands of ninjas charged towards Megatron, who had transformed from Moonlight Han. HMPH, multiple Gatling gun template, a mechanical snort came from Megatron's mouth. To the surprise of the Iwa and Sand Ninjas, the giant metal man in front of them did not charge at them with a 6-meter-long hammer. Instead, 2 openings appeared in his chest, and 2 strange multitude cylinders rose from his shoulders. His unarmed hand pointed at them, and the mechanical hand rolled and changed, transforming into a hollow, pitch-black cylinder. Defend! Retreat! Anxious shouts rang out behind the charging ninjas. The Iwa and Sand Ninjas did not know what these cylinders were for, but Yakira, who had fought Moonlight Han before, did. Her elite troops had died under these cylinders. Buzz buzz buzz! Unfortunately, it was too late. The 4 Gatling guns on Megatron's chest and shoulders simultaneously spewed out tongues of fire a meter long, continuously like an oxygen jet. PFFT 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 bang bang! A torrent of metal rained down on the charging Sands and Iwa ninja, blood and bits of flesh splashing up like hailstones hitting a lake. Thousands of charging ninja fell at a visible speed, like wheat being cut down. Their speed of attack couldn't even keep up with their speed of fall. In less than a second, a couple hundred of the leading ninja had already fallen. They weren't even close to Moonlight Han. The speed at which they fell was forcing their lines to retreat. Clang clang clang! Metal cartridge cases continuously ejected from the chambers of the 4 Gatling guns, sliding onto Megatron's metallic body with a series of crisp clanging sounds. Earth Release, Earth Wall! Seeing their fallen comrades, some Iwa ninja reacted, forming hand seals with their fastest speed, raising earthen walls. Boom! The newly erected earthen wall shattered into pieces the next second, tearing several ninjas behind it to shreds in the explosion. Megatron's right hand, now transformed into a hand cannon, was firing 75mm shells at a rate of 2 per second. This is blatant slaughter. Taking back the heavenly bridge is simply impossible. Behind the charging ninjas, Wang Tu stared blankly at the endless stream of falling ninjas. This speed of slaughter was beyond even the speed of killing chickens and dogs. They simply couldn't fight him head-on. Moonlight Han was a killing machine, a born killing machine. Retreat. Seeing the ninjas dying one after another, including many sand ninjas, Ye King decisively shouted the order. She couldn't tolerate this slaughter continuing, and killing Moonlight Han, with his extremely fast flight speed, was impossible unless Moonlight Han had lost his mind. Otherwise, they simply couldn't kill him head-on. Retreat was the wisest choice now. As for the remaining less than 200 Konoha ninja, she had selectively forgotten them. The sacrifices were disproportionate to the gains. Although Wang Tu hadn't given the order, the Iwa ninja selectively pretended to hear it. In an instant, earthen walls rose up, and the Iwa and sand ninja retreated frantically towards the rear and the surrounding forests. Continuing is just meaningless, pointless sacrifice, Ye King said to the stunned Wang Tu, not caring whether he heard her or not, and led the sand ninja away quickly. Retreat. Hearing Ye King's words, Wang Tu came to his senses and immediately shouted the order. Actually, he didn't need to give the order, the Iwa ninja had already begun to retreat. Watching the retreating Iwa and sand ninja, Yu Guang'an only fired symbolically for a few seconds before slowing down his firing rate, firing only intermittently, and then sat and watched the sand and Iwa ninja escape into the forest, showing no intention of pursuing them. It wasn't that Moonlight Han didn't want to continue the pursuit or was showing any mercy, it was because his energy points were running out. He had about 300,000 energy points left from the previous battle, and the 4,000 explosive tags provided another 280,000, totaling 580,000. Upgrading consumed 500,000, leaving him with 80,000. Transforming into Megatron alone consumed 50,000, and with the energy consumed by using Megatron in combat, plus the simultaneous firing of 4 Gatling guns, nearly 15,000 rounds of ammunition in less than 30 seconds, plus over 1,000 large-caliber aerial bullets, over 40 75mm shells, 4 high-value incendiary bombs, and 2 rockets, he only had a little over 10,000 energy points left. The enemy still had about 2,300 people. He simply couldn't sustain the fight any longer. The data after the upgrade will be explained in the next chapter or two, including its value. The protagonist's nickname will be revealed soon. Please vote. Starting in November. I'll update twice a day on average. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Belated Support. After confirming that both the Iwa and Suna ninjas had withdrawn, Gecko Han cancelled the Megatron template and reverted to his original form. Maintaining the Megatron template, even without fighting, consumed 10 energy points per minute, a painful blow for the now impoverished Gecko Han. We won. As the sea of fire created by the aerial incendiary bombs subsided, the Konoha ninjas stared in stunned silence at the countless corpses scattered on the ground. Then came a chorus of weeping cheers. Joy was mingled with sorrow, and sorrow mingled with joy. Han, we succeeded, Gecko Hoshino said sadly as she approached Gecko Han. Many members of the Gecko clan had also perished in this battle. Yes, we succeeded. Now we just have to wait, Gecko Han sighed. It was truly a success. The Suna and Iwa ninjas would no longer risk heavy casualties to retake the Tenchi Bridge. Let's collect the bodies of our fallen comrades, clean up the battlefield, and then wait here. Reinforcements should arrive soon, said Moonlight Han, finding a place to sit and rest. 5 days passed quickly. Because the Tenchi Bridge had been captured by the Konoha ninjas, and almost impossible to retake, coupled with the heavy casualties suffered by the Iwa ninjas, and Jiraiya's relentless attacks on the main battlefield, the Iwa ninjas had to change their overall tactics. They abandoned the Fire Country territory they had already captured, and even abandoned the Tenchi Bridge line, instead concentrating their forces in the direction of the Canopy Bridge in the Grass Country. Yekira also led the Sand Ninjas away from the Iwa ninja battlefield, but of the more than 1,000 Sand Ninjas who came, less than 500 returned alive. On the other side, in the Sand Ninja battlefield where Orochimaru was located, the Sand Ninjas had gone back on their word and declared war on Konoha again. As the 6th day's sunlight shone down, nearly 3,000 ninjas arrived at the Tenchi Bridge. The battlefield here is truly devastating. At the forefront of the arriving Konoha ninja, a man with two-tier streaks on his face, wearing a red robe and with long, loose white hair cascading down his back, sighed sadly. Everywhere there were traces of ninjutsu destruction, making it easy to imagine how fierce the battle had been. It's likely that not many of the 500-plus Konoha ninja survived, perhaps only a handful. Jiraiya, leading nearly 3,000 Konoha ninja, was quickly discovered. Lord Jiraiya. As soon as Jiraiya and his men entered the camp, Hakun Hayato and Gekko Hoshino greeted them. Thank you for your hard work. It's thanks to you that we gained a huge advantage, not only reclaiming the territory we lost but also giving the Iwe ninja a severe counterattack. Looking at the wounded Hakun Hayato and Gekko Hoshino, Jiraiya expressed his sincere gratitude. Then give us a break. Our casualties are too great. And the dead need to be buried. Moonlight Ton emerged from a tent, speaking in a low voice. Of the 550 men, less than 200 are still alive. Of the remaining 40-odd ninjas of the Moonlight Clan, only 17 remain, originally more than 60, but more than 20 had died in the Sand Village battlefield before Moonlight Han obtained the template. Many familiar faces, including Minako, have also perished. Hearing this, Jiraiya said sadly, "You really need to rest. I approve this break. Go back and heal your wounds. You are all heroes of Konoha, sir." Upon seeing Moonlight Han, Hokuai and Zeojin greeted him respectfully. Then he introduced them. This is Lord Jiraiya, and this is our unit's commander, Lord Gekkohan. Upon hearing this, Jiraiya carefully examined Gekkohan. I've heard so much about you. Even Orochimaru praised you highly, saying you're the most talented person he's ever met, without a doubt. This is the first time I've heard Orochimaru praise someone like this. The future of Konoha rests on the shoulders of young people like you. Let's talk about that later. Gekkohan shook his head, his gaze fixed on Jiraiya, and said, Now, can you explain why you're late, and a full 5 days late? Almost all the Iwe ninja have withdrawn from here before you arrived. Hearing this, Jiraiya stammered, unable to speak. Even though he was known for his thick skin in Konoha, he couldn't answer Gekkohan's question at this moment, and felt utterly ashamed. He understood the crucial importance of the Tenchi Bridge to the Iwe ninja. Although he had learned from spies that Gekkohan's forces were attacking the bridge, after Iwe scrambled a large number of ninja to the site, he held on to hope that Gekkohan and his men could hold such a vital position. He even grieved for Gekkohan and his troops for a considerable time. He seized the opportunity to launch a fierce attack on the Iwe ninja, hoping to gain as much of an advantage as possible while Gekkohan's forces were attacking the bridge and tying down some of the Iwe ninja. He hadn't even considered sending reinforcements, believing that sending reinforcements deep into Iwe's rear was tantamount to sending them to their deaths. Seizing the existing opportunity was paramount. However, reality seemed to have slapped him in the face. Gekkohan's forces not only held the bridge but also seemed to have achieved significant results, impacting the main battlefront. What? Don't know how to explain? Or can't find an excuse? Gekkohan looked at Jiraiya, sneered, and turned to leave, leaving only those words behind. I overestimated you, Jiraiya. I thought you would seize the opportunity after receiving news from here, and you did. Unfortunately, you made a wrong move, but the way you seized the opportunity was different from what I expected. Perhaps Orochimaru is thinking the same way as me. If it were Orochimaru, he would definitely seize the opportunity, even at the cost of more ninjas, to support Tenchi Bridge. Because Tenchi Bridge is the Achilles heel of the Iwe ninjas, only by holding it firmly can victory be secured. If Gekkohan and the others fail to defend Tenchi Bridge and repel the Iwe ninjas, it would be tantamount to opening up the Iwe ninjas' Achilles heel. Gekko Hoshino, Hyuga Tokugawa, and Shirakumo Hayato, these Konoha ninjas who followed Gekkohan, watched him confront Jiraiya without a single person offering any dissuasion or acting as a peacemaker, even though everyone knew that Jiraiya was the overall commander of this battlefield. Even though everyone was prepared to sacrifice themselves when attacking Tenchi Bridge. However, they all knew that without Gekkohan, the sacrifice of these more than 500 Konoha ninjas might only have bought them an advantage for 1 or 2 days on the front lines, making such a great victory impossible. Their sacrifice could even be considered in vain. Chapter 83 Kakashi's Challenge. Carrier, Moonlight Han, Wang Han, the protagonist's name before transmigration. The carrier is unique and cannot be changed. Templates cannot be installed on non-carriers. Some templates can be used outside the body. Multiple templates can be used. Core: the core cannot be damaged and can be automatically repaired. War titles are unlocked after killing 3,000 people. Titles: 10 killers, 100 enemies, 1,000 killers, 3,959. Downloaded and installed templates: energy collection template, which can collect energy, electrical energy, thermal energy, kinetic energy, and special energy. Terminator: T800 robot template, Bloodshot, blood nanobot template, Terminator, T1000 liquid robot template, Transformers, Megatron template, which includes 5 forms, the Decepticon leader from Cybertron. Everyone is familiar with him, so I won't go into details. Transformation requires 30,000 energy points, and maintaining the form consumes 10 energy points per minute. The consumption doubles depending on the intensity of the battle. Installed weapon template, SPAS 12 shotgun template, Minmi light machine gun template, M249 light machine gun, Barrett heavy sniper rifle template, Flying Thunder cannon template, Schneider 75mm mountain gun template, 150mm K16 cannon template, Type 97 90mm light mortar template, Panzerfaust anti-tank rocket launcher template, K18 aerial incendiary bomb template, weight 2,500 kilograms, internal 50 kilograms of white scale, 1,800 kilograms of gasoline. XM556 Gatling gun template. XM556 machine gun is only 55 centimeters long, weighs 7 kilograms, uses 5.56 millimeters caliber ammunition. It has 2 firing rates: 2,000 rounds/4,000 rounds per minute, consuming 80 energy points, with each bullet consuming 0.1 energy points. 2.0 caliber heavy aircraft machine gun template, Cybertron technology, equivalent in power to 20mm anti-aircraft machine gun, larger than the 12.7mm caliber of the Barrett missile, is an anti-aircraft weapon. The materialized weapon consumes 100 energy points, and each bullet consumes 1 energy point. AIM-9L Sidewinder missile, length 2.87 meters, diameter 0.127 meters, wingspan 0.635 meters, weight 86 kilograms. Propulsion device is a solid rocket motor. Maximum range 18.53 kilometers, launch altitude 300 to 20,000 meters. Flight speed Mach 2.5. Guidance method is passive infrared. Warhead explosive is 2.74 kilograms of high explosive. Kill radius 10 to 11 meters. Mustard gas bomb. This needs no explanation. Technology templates. DJI drones. Gas masks. Anesthetic needles. Tranquilizer guns. Biochemical technology. Methamphetamine capsule locators. Life detection radar. Alien technology, capable of detecting life forms within a 30-kilometer radius. Energy detection radar. Alien technology, capable of detecting energy within a 30-kilometer radius. The energy point storage limit has increased tenfold again, from 500,000 to 5 million points. In the Konoha team returning to camp, Yu Guang'an closed his eyes and carefully observed his current template status. This upgrade, besides adding many powerful technology templates, also added 2 things. One was the core, the specific function of which Yu Guang'an could only guess, and he dared not actually try it. The other was the war title, which was what he lacked in his previous upgrades. It could only be unlocked by killing 3,000 enemies. If it weren't for this great battle, it might have taken much longer to unlock the war title before he could upgrade. "You are Yu Guang'an, known as the strongest genius of Konoha?" A haughty voice interrupted Yu Guang'an's thoughts and attracted the attention of everyone around him. It was a child with silver hair, wearing black clothes, armor, and carrying a white short sword, whose lower half of his face was covered. "Kakashi, you mustn't be disrespectful to Lord Gekko-han." His words displeased those around Gekko-han. Kimura Takuya, Gekko-han's top henchman, immediately appeared before Kakashi, shouting a rebuke, his Jonin-level killing intent radiating unrestrained power. Kimura Takuya recognized Kakashi. The others around him glared angrily at Kakashi. Gekko-han was surrounded by his subordinates, who had survived the seemingly hopeless battle at the Tenchi Bridge thanks to him. They respected Gekko-han's strength and were deeply grateful to him. "Step back." Gekko-han waved for Kimura Takuya to leave, then looked at Hatake Kakashi and said, "Hatake Kakashi, I've heard of you. Might Guy often mentions you, saying you're the opponent he most wants to surpass. You mean that weakling? He's got some influence." Kakashi scoffed. I never considered him a rival. But I heard you're quite close to him, you're trying to provoke me. Upon hearing this, Moonlight Han scoffed, confidently stating, while your personality is indeed awful and repulsive, and you always wear a mask, this doesn't sound like your true feelings. Jiraiya sent you here, didn't he? You're here on a mission. Trying to ease the tension through you. No, I genuinely want to challenge you. It has nothing to do with the mission, Kakashi said, drawing a kunai. I want to see if you, the current #1 genius of Konoha, are stronger, or if I, the former #1 genius of Konoha, am stronger, still not giving up. That could kill you, Moonlight Han scoffed, unmoved by Kakashi's challenge. That's right, if you don't take this seriously, you'll die, Kakashi said, charging towards Moonlight Han first. Bang! Before Moonlight Han could even react, two figures rushed out from beside him, one of them getting ahead of the other and punching Kakashi away. Sarika, we should have taught this kid a lesson, Kimura Takuya said with dissatisfaction. It was Shirakumo Hayato who had just beaten Kakashi Hatake to a flying position. Jiraiya, using a junior like this is really like your style. Gekko Han didn't look at Kakashi who had been knocked away, but instead looked at a large tree next to him. Haha, Jiraiya awkwardly emerged from behind the tree that Moonlight Han had been watching, laughing as he said, I just thought you young people should have more in common, so I sent Kakashi. I didn't expect Kakashi to misunderstand me, is that so? Hell, Moonlight Han chuckled, turning to look at Kakashi, who had just gotten up, and said, then can I also understand that you had Kakashi challenge me, and then you'd step in to stop him at the crucial moment, just to save face and ease the tension between us? Otherwise, you should have stopped him earlier. We're all Konoha ninjas, fighting to the death to protect Konoha. We should all be united, not like this. Hearing this, Jiraiya stopped joking and spoke calmly and seriously. Although there were over 3,000 Konoha ninjas here, because of the reinforcements, Moonlight Han and the remaining less than 200 Konoha ninjas he led were clearly banding together on Moonlight Han's side. They didn't communicate with anyone else, and a significant rift had developed between them. No one was even willing to tell him about the battle at the Tenchi Bridge. Jiraiya believed that their leader, Gekko Han, was key to breaking down this barrier. Although Gekko Han led 550 Konoha ninja, he was only 11 or 12 years old, at most to Jonin in strength. His strength lay in his intelligence and the special abilities of his bloodline limit. It was indeed Jiraiya who gave Kakashi the mission to challenge Gekko Han. He believed Kakashi's strength was greater than Gekko Han's, who excelled in intelligence and bloodline limit, and that challenging Gekko Han shouldn't be a problem. He planned to intervene at a crucial moment, giving him face, and using this as a breakthrough to ease tensions between the two groups. However, he miscalculated. Gekko Han wasn't provoked by Kakashi, and his men stopped the challenge, and Jiraiya himself was discovered. Jiraiya knew he had wronged Gekko Han and his group, but if given the chance to choose again, he would still choose not to provide support. I must admit, your skin is indeed the thickest in Konoha. I, Gekko Han, would call you the thickest skinned. Upon hearing this, Gekko Han scoffed contemptuously. Jiraiya's words made it seem as if he hadn't abandoned his support for them. Lord Jiraiya, I don't think it's a wise choice to let Kakashi challenge Lord Gekko Han. Hokuai and Zeojin walked to Jiraiya's side and said softly. However, she avoided the topic Jiraiya had brought up. The others remained silent. Obviously, no one would easily forgive Jiraiya based on a few words. Isn't this just to satisfy everyone's curiosity? Who is stronger, the former #1 genius of Konoha or the current #1 genius of Konoha? Upon hearing this, Jiraiya laughed and said. Gekko Han's lack of respect meant he could only continue to be shameless. Lord Jiraiya, do you think Lord Gekko Han was able to lead these 550 ninjas and gain our all-encompassing respect solely because of his reputation as a genius? Hokuai and Zeojin asked. If there's any real danger, I'll intervene. I'm Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya said with a smile, seemingly unconcerned. In truth, Jiraiya was extremely serious, but he still wanted to see just how powerful Gekko Han was, to earn the respect of so many and the praise of Orochimaru. If danger arose, he would stop him with all his might immediately. Lord Jiraiya, Lord Gekko Han killed 5 times the number of enemies we had when we set out. And that included more than one elite Jonin. Kakashi is still a child, the gap between him and Lord Gekko Han is too great. Hokuai and Hayato shook his head, saying, I'm afraid Lord Jiraiya won't even have time to stop him before the fight ends. I advise Lord Jiraiya to prevent this dangerous fight from happening. Oh. To receive such a high evaluation from you, hearing this, Jiraiya's expression turned serious. Hokuian Hayato was a Jonin of considerable strength. It seemed he needed to re-evaluate this current Konoha's #1 genius. His strength was probably already on par with his own. Alright, let's fight. I won't use ninjutsu. Having guessed Yu Guang'an's strength, Jiraiya made up his mind and said to him. Jiraiya, Yu Guang'an didn't speak, but all the Konoha ninja glared at him. Even Byun-Zazima's eyes were filled with anger, and he stopped calling him Lord. Of course. You can all come at me together. The rest of the Konoha ninja are not allowed to interfere in this battle, Jiraiya said. This completely enraged Yu Guang'an's ninja. They clenched their fists, and some even took out kunai. It seemed that if Yu Guang'an nodded, they would all rush up and beat Jiraiya. Lord Jiraiya, the Konoha ninja who had been watching the situation from the sidelines, became anxious. They wanted to help, but were bound by Jiraiya's orders and could only watch anxiously for the time being. All of you, step back, Yu Guang'an said to the Konoha ninja around him. Chapter 84 Barrett's middle part. After dismissing the enraged Konoha ninja, Gekko Han said to Jiraiya, if beating you up could atone for your mistakes, you'd be lying on a stretcher by now. Unfortunately, beating you up, even killing you, won't end this war, nor will it bring the dead back to life. Otherwise, we would beat you mercilessly, calling on our friends and family to join in, beating you until you can't take care of yourself. Jiraiya remained silent. He genuinely wanted a beating to appease Gekko Han and his men. Right now, we just want to return to the village to recuperate and pay respects to our fallen comrades, Gekko Han said, then looked away from Jiraiya. The rest of Gekko Han's men also remained silent, returning to their positions. Even the onlookers couldn't refute Gekko Han's words. It wasn't that they didn't want to be magnanimous. If they hadn't terrified the Iwen ninja this time, if the Iwen ninja had returned, Gekko Han, now depleted of energy points, wouldn't have been able to defeat a large number of Iwen ninja again. Everyone would likely have died. Fortunately, there weren't so many ifs. Jiraiya's actions had already cost everyone's lives, even the advantage they had gained with their lives, making almost the worst decision imaginable. Perhaps Jiraiya was right, but it was their lives that were at stake, and this wasn't something that could be forgiven by a few words or a beating. Sigh. Seeing that Gekko Han and his ninjas were ignoring him, Jiraiya could only sigh helplessly and prepare to turn and leave. He knew Gekko Han was telling the truth. Gekko Han, please accept my challenge. This has nothing to do with the mission. I want to challenge you myself. Might Guy often mentions you to me, saying you're his most important friend, so I want to know just how strong you really are. A loud shout rang out, drawing everyone's attention once more. Kakashi drew his white fang short sword, his gaze fixed firmly on Gekko Han. Kakashi. Seeing Kakashi, Jiraiya hesitated for a moment, but didn't stop him. Kakashi, challenging a superior? Do you want to die? You're just a chunin, Kimura Takuya said in a grim voice, a kunai already in his hand. Seeing this, Jiraiya's muscles tensed. Even if he offended Gekko Han and the others again, he wouldn't watch Kakashi die in front of him. Kakashi was only 9 years old, 3 years away from becoming a Jonin. Kimura Takuya, though a sycophant, was only an ordinary Jonin. Kakashi couldn't possibly fight him. Then I'll give you a chance, Gekko Han said, taking the kunai from Kimura Takuya's hand. I don't really like your spiky silver hair. With that, Gekko Han threw the kunai, letting it fall freely. Kakashi's eyes were fixed on the kunai. The moment it hit the ground, he would unleash his full power to charge at Gekko Han. Everyone's eyes were also focused on the falling kunai. When it landed, they would witness the duel between the former Konoha's #1 genius, Kakashi, and the current Konoha's #1 genius, Gekko Han. However, Gekko Han's subordinates didn't care about this. They all knew that the outcome of their battle was decided in an instant, already predetermined. What they cared about was whether Gekko Han would kill Kakashi. If Gekko Han killed Kakashi, the fact that he had killed his fellow villager might have some repercussions. PFFT, the kunai landed on the ground with a soft sound. Bang, a deafening sound rang out. And the wind pressure stirred up the surrounding dust. Strands of silver hair fluttered in the wind, falling in front of Kakashi's eyes, causing him to stop in his tracks, staring blankly at Gekko Han opposite him. What just happened? How is this possible? I didn't see anything, The surrounding people exclaimed in surprise and confusion. Even Jiraiya was drenched in cold sweat. Only Gekko Han's subordinates looked on as if this was to be expected. Kakashi's once flowing, towering hair now had a groove, with stray hairs falling down, the result of a Barrett bullet. It looked as if his hair had been styled into a middle part, the swirling air pressure from the bullet pressing the hair on either side of the groove down. This completely altered Kakashi's signature hairstyle. One of Yu Guanghan's hands had transformed into a Barrett, the muzzle still emitting wisps of inconspicuous white smoke. It wasn't hard to imagine that if Yu Guanghan had lowered his hand even slightly, Kakashi's head would have been blasted open, or even blown off entirely. "You lost," Yu Guanghan's calm voice rang out. The Barrett returned to his hand, and he continued walking forward without looking back. "Let's go, everyone, let's go home." With Yu Guanghan's shout, his ninjas quickly followed him, leaving Jiraiya and his many Konoha ninjas stunned. "I lost just like that." Kakashi stared at the white fang short sword in his hand, still somewhat dazed. Gekko Han's attack was too fast. It was too fast for his eyes to catch, and he couldn't react before it was over. No wonder he's the commander of these 550 ninjas. This kind of attack, several times faster than sound, is enough to suppress any dissent, Jiraiya murmured, finally understanding. Gekko Han was not only intelligent, but his strength was even greater. Even he had only seen a flash of red light just now, and knew he couldn't have dodged it. At most, he could only avoid vital points. Time passed quickly. 2 days later, Gekko Han and Jiraiya's Konoha ninja finally arrived at the Konoha camp where they were fighting the Iwa ninja. In the 2 days since Gekko Han revealed his strength and said those words, Jiraiya hadn't approached him again, nor had any other Konoha ninjas come to say anything out of the heat of the moment. Only some familiar ninjas came to catch up. Kakashi didn't reappear before Gekko Han, though it was rumored he had acquired a hat. "When you return, please deliver this letter to the 3rd Hokage. The wounded are in your care." At the entrance of the Konoha camp, Jiraiya handed a letter to Gekko Han, bowing deeply. Those returning with Gekko Han included not only his subordinate ninjas but also nearly 300 ninjas severely wounded on the front lines, many crippled. "They are all heroes of Konoha. We will ensure their safe arrival at the Konoha hospital," Gekko Han said coldly, accepting the letter from Jiraiya. He turned and left. "If possible, I hope you can come and support the battlefield here as soon as possible. We desperately need you," Jiraiya said loudly, watching Gekko Han's retreating figure. Although he didn't know Gekko Han's exact strength, Jiraiya knew he was incredibly powerful, a formidable fighting force that would be of immense help in the war against the Iwa ninjas. "Instead of relying on me, you should think more about how to win this war," Moonlight Han said without turning his head, and led his men away, escorting the wounded. Chapter 85 Return to Konoha. They're back. The heroes are back. At the entrance of Konoha village, the 3rd Hokage had already led the villagers to stand at the gate, waiting for the returning troops. Seeing the returning troops, the anticipation and worry in everyone's eyes intensified. "That gate really is familiar." Looking at the bright green gate and the 3rd Hokage and villagers waiting outside, Gekko Han stopped in his tracks, sighing with emotion. 3 months ago, he had left through this very gate with the support troops, and it was the 3rd Hokage and the villagers who had seen him off. He vividly remembered how the hot-blooded fool had cried and shouted that he wanted to train harder and get to the battlefield as soon as possible. Now, he was no longer the Gekko Han who lacked talent, worked desperately but remained mediocre, and tried to curry favor with future bigwigs. He was no longer the Gekko Han with flesh and blood. "My lord," seeing Gekko Han somewhat lost in thought, Kimura Takuya had to call out. Gekko Han stopped, and everyone else stopped too, but the 3rd Hokage and the villagers were standing at the gate waiting for their return. This wasn't the time for daydreaming. Moonlight Han gave a soft hum and walked towards the village he had been away from for so long. As Moonlight Han walked forward, the others who had stopped also began to move forward again. "Welcome back, heroes, you've worked hard." Looking at Moonlight Han and the many Konoha ninjas who had come before him, everyone was wounded, and there were many wounded. The 3rd Hokage's long speech, which he had prepared in his mind, was reduced to a weary "you've worked hard." The villagers did not cheer for the returning ninjas, but instead looked around to see if any of their relatives were among the group. "3rd Hokage, this is a letter that Jiraiya asked me to give you." Looking at the 50-something-year-old 3rd Hokage, Moonlight Han took out Jiraiya's letter from his pocket and handed it to him. Taking the letter from Moonlight Han, The third Hokage did not rush to open it, but said, "Let's go into the village first. We'll take care of the wounded. Your families are waiting for you." Hearing this, Moonlight Han nodded and gave an order to the ninjas behind him. "Hand over the wounded." Dismissed. With that, Gecko Han walked to Gecko Hoshina's side, leading the Gecko clan ninjas and several Jonin into Konoha with the third Hokage. It wasn't just about handing over the wounded, there were also the corpses of many comrades sealed in the scroll, but that wasn't appropriate to discuss now and cause further grief. They also needed to report on the war and the mission's progress. In the shadows, Shimura Danzo silently departed. Gecko Han, a man even Orochimaru admired, calling him the strongest genius, and whose root ninjas said possessed an incredibly terrifying bloodline limit. What's even more surprising is that both Iwa and Tsunagakure are known as killing machines. Both villages simultaneously issued orders that any ninja squad or company encountering Gecko Han could unconditionally abandon their mission and immediately retreat without penalty for failure, a privilege once reserved for Konoha's White Fang. However, Gecko Han enjoys two additional privileges: the presence of Iwa ninja, and a strict prohibition against any team of less than 300 men engaging him, even if it means abandoning a key stronghold. This is a privilege even White Fang never received. This indirectly demonstrates that Gecko Han's deterrent power has surpassed that of the deceased Konoha's White Fang. That's the mission sequence of events. In the Hokage's office, Gecko Han gave a complete report of the operation to the third Hokage, even detailing his ambush of Tsunagakure ninja using traps and his awakening of his bloodline limit at the end. He concluded by saying, during Gecko Han's report, the Jonin remained completely silent, offering no objections. The third Hokage was speechless after hearing Gecko Han's report. He felt Gecko Han was simply telling him a story, or perhaps boasting. He believed that Gecko Han had killed about 30 Sand ninja before awakening his bloodline limit, as it was possible to rely on traps. However, after awakening his bloodline limit, Gecko Han killed 30 Sand ninja who were preparing to infiltrate Konoha's rear in his first battle. Furthermore, he killed nearly 200 enemies in the following week, without relying on numerous traps. This was quite frightening. Even more frightening was his subsequent killing spree in the war against the Sand Ninja, where he repeatedly killed over 100 enemies, becoming a key figure in the war. In the Battle of Tenchi Bridge, Gecko Han single-handedly killed nearly 2,000 Sand and Iwa ninja, practically overwhelming them, including many elites. More importantly, Gecko Han had only awakened his bloodline limit for less than 3 months. This feat seemed like pure boasting, and a massive one at that. The third Hokage's reason told him he couldn't believe Gecko Han's report, but the facts suggested it was likely true. The Jonin didn't object, clearly acknowledging that such a record was Gecko Han's doing. This was because the Iwa ninja had suffered a crushing defeat at the Tenchi Bridge, because of the titles bestowed upon Gecko Han by the Sands and Iwa ninja, because of the over 3,000 enemy ninja headbands in the sealing scrolls he submitted, and because the collected corpses couldn't be faked. Third Hokage, if there's nothing else, we'll head back now. The bodies of our clansmen still need burial, and their families need comforting, Gecko Han said, seeing the third Hokage's continued silence. In the 3 months he had been on the battlefield, the Gecko clan had lost over 70 ninjas. The entire clan, including Shinan and children still in school, had only 40 or 50 ninja remaining. Yes, go. I'll go and comfort them tonight, the third Hokage nodded in agreement. Yes, said Moonlight Han, leading his Jonin out of the Hokage's office. Yuan Fei, do you think his report is credible? Young people tend to exaggerate. After Moonlight Han left, a voice echoed from the shadows of the Hokage's office. Hand him over to me. I'll make him an excellent ninja. His prestige is very high now. And their results aren't fake. Hearing this, the third Hokage said, recalling the scene when Moonlight Han returned. When Moonlight Han stopped, the ninjas behind him all stopped. This was enough to show Moonlight Han's status in the hearts of those ninjas. Rationally, he believed the facts more. Even if Moonlight Han exaggerated, his strength was still formidable. The Jonin's attitude spoke volumes. Hearing this, Shimura Danzo fell silent. He understood the third Hokage's meaning. Such a high-prestige person was not suitable for entering the shadowy route, easily causing dissatisfaction among many ninjas. It might even lead to undesirable consequences. Shimura Danzo also knew that Moonlight Han possessed immense strength, and such a situation was something neither he nor the third Hokage wanted to see. Especially during the crucial period of World War II. Chapter 86 Arrangements for Moonlight Han. Tonight, the Moonlight Clan's territory is filled with weeping. No one dares to disturb the clan. The Moonlight Clan is a ninja clan, with a total population of only 150. Nearly half of them are ninjas, including those in school and those who have left the ninja ranks. Now, they have lost over 40 ninjas. 5 out of 10 families are in mourning, and weeping can be heard from almost every house. Even in the home of the clan head, Moonlight Hoshino, 4-year-old Moonlight Hayate is sleeping amidst his cries, under the illumination of countless stars. Nearly 1,000 blood-stained sand ninja headbands are neatly arranged before the memorial tablet. Moonlight Han drinks, his drunken gaze fixed on the 2 blurred names engraved on the memorial tablet, Moonlight Wenai and Moonlight Mizi. A somber sadness and loneliness mingles with a strong smell of alcohol, permeating the area around the memorial tablet. His parents' deaths have been a huge blow to him. What do you plan to do with him? Hidden in the shadows near the memorial stone, Shimura Danzo asked one of the 3 others in the starry night, watching the dejected Moonlight Han before the monument. Sigh. Let him get through this period first, another figure sighed, the voice of the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. How could they not pay attention to Moonlight Han, who had suddenly risen to prominence and was now almost able to sway the battle? His bloodline limit and strength are very important on the battlefield. I think we need to send him to the battlefield as soon as possible to utilize his abilities, another voice rang out, Kaoru Uchiha objecting. That's right, this will also reduce our casualties, another voice said, Mikado Hamura also disagreeing with Hiruzen Sarutobi's arrangements for Moonlight Han. Such powerful combat strength shouldn't be wasted in the village, let him have some time. He's still a child after all, he needs someone to guide him, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, shaking his head. Even if the front lines need him now, I think you wouldn't want to see this child go astray. Alright, then let's do as you say and let him get through this period. Hearing this, Shimura Danzo and the other 2 were silent for a moment, then unanimously agreed with Sarutobi Hiruzen's suggestion. Indeed, Gecko Han's role was not only important for the current war, but also for the future. They weren't people who only looked at the present. Just like Danzo, he saw in Gecko Han the hope of unifying the ninja world, or at the very least, give Konoha a deterrent force against other ninja villages no less than that of the tailed beasts. What do you plan to do with his battle achievements? Danzo once again posed a question that gave the 3rd Hokage a headache. Uchiha Kaoru and Mikado Hamura also looked at the 3rd Hokage. This was indeed a very troublesome question. Gecko Han's achievement of killing more than 3,000 enemies was already enormous, not to mention the crucial advantage he gained on the battlefields of Tsunagakure and Iwagakure. These were also 2 huge achievements. I remember he sold his house and everything valuable before going to the battlefield, so let's reward him with a house and some money first. After thinking for a while, the 3rd Hokage said. I have no objection to that. Danzo nodded and asked again, and what about his strength? He's a Jinan now, what do you plan to do? That's right. His reputation is quite high, the Jinan position is no longer enough to contain his strength, Kaoru Uchiha also said. Indeed, Hamura and Mikado agreed. Gecko Han's strength is enough to be an elite Jonin. However, if we make him an elite Jonin directly, it won't be so easy to get him to build strong enough bonds. The 3rd Hokage scrutinized Danzo, realizing that Danzo was waiting for him here. After thinking for a moment, he said, he's in his most confused period now, but it's also the easiest time for him to build bonds. We need to help him build more bonds, his Jinan period is very important to him. Do you have anyone in mind? His strength isn't something just anyone is qualified to be his mentor Jonin and teammate, Danzo asked. Finding a suitable Jonin to instruct Gecko Han and his teammates would be extremely difficult. There were only a handful of Jonin available. The most suitable candidates were the 3rd Hokage himself and the 3 elder advisors, their experience and status were sufficient. Then there were the 3 Sannin, and while the Sannin could barely qualify as Gecko Han's Jonin instructors, they still fell short compared to his immense strength and reputation. As for others, don't be ridiculous. Apart from the aforementioned 6, even renowned elite Jonin were unqualified to serve as Gecko Han's instructors, given his overwhelming power and numerous achievements. Kaoru Uchiha and Hamura Mikado both looked at the 3rd Hokage. They also knew that finding a suitable Jonin for Gecko Han was difficult, and even choosing teammates was challenging. While Gecko Han's teammates didn't need overwhelming strength, they did need exceptionally talented individuals, like Kakashi. Perhaps we can ask him before making a decision, the 3rd Hokage said. Danzo had brought this up now to prevent him from making the decision unilaterally, and even the Sannin would be subject to their interference. All four of them wanted to become Jonin instructors for Gekko-Han, which would be extremely beneficial to their factions. Very well, Danzo nodded upon hearing this and disappeared into the forest first. After Danzo left, Kaoru Utatane and Hamura Medikato also vanished into the forest. They had achieved half of their goal. The conversation that took place in the forest went unnoticed by the already drunk Gekko-Han. In the dim light of the moon and stars, Gekko-Han, lost in sorrow and intoxication, unknowingly fell asleep. Chapter 87 Might Guy. At dawn, Moonlight Man, lying before the memorial stone, slowly awoke, rubbing his aching head from a hangover. You're awake. There's a rule in the village that minors aren't allowed to drink alcohol. Kingping's indifferent voice sounded behind Moonlight Man, devoid of emotion. This doesn't apply to ninjas from the battlefield, Moonlight Man said, getting up and looking behind him. A white-haired girl, a year or two younger than him, with long, fluffy twin ponytails, stood there. She was slender, dressed in black and white, with a beautiful, delicate face and red and white eyes. However, her face exuded a coldness that kept strangers at bay. You're a ninja? And you went to the battlefield? Hearing Moonlight Man's words, the white-haired girl was visibly surprised, then quickly returned to her indifferent expression. Then there's no problem. Everyone pretends not to see underage ninjas from the battlefield drinking, even newly graduated Jinan. With that, the white-haired girl turned and left. Who's that white-haired girl? Watching the girl leave, Yu Guanghan rubbed his throbbing head again, glanced at the name on the memorial stone one last time, then turned and left, leaving only the neatly arranged blood-stained headbands in front of the memorial stone. Whoosh whoosh, after Yu Guanghan left, two Anbu ninjas immediately appeared in front of the memorial stone, collected all the blood-stained sand ninja headbands, and then disappeared again in two after-images in front of the memorial stone. Han, why do you smell so much alcohol? How much did you drink? In the Yu Guang family, when Yu Guanghan entered the Yu Guangzingai family's residence, Yu Guangzingai immediately appeared in front of him. After smelling the strong smell of alcohol on Yu Guanghan, he frowned and asked, "How is He-Eight?" Yu Guanghan asked. He-Eight's mother died in the Battle of the Tenchi Bridge. I cried all night yesterday and just fell asleep not long ago, Yu Guangzingai shook his head and said, his eyes filled with sadness. I'm sorry, Yu Guanghan said remorsefully. If he hadn't given the order to go to the Heavenly Bridge, but instead continued to join Jiraiya's main force, there wouldn't have been such heavy casualties, and Gekko Hoshino's wife would most likely not have died. Although his order was the most correct one given the situation. No, this isn't your fault, Gekko Hoshino shook his head and said, without you, everyone would have died, and we wouldn't have achieved such a great victory, Gekko Han said, Uncle Hoshino, this time I intend to dedicate all my credit to the clan. Ah. Why? Upon hearing this, Gekko Hoshino was stunned for a moment and quickly asked. Gekko Han's credit was more than 10 times the total credit earned by the rest of the Gekko clan, a huge amount that could even be compared to all the Gekko clan's collections and property. This time the clan suffered great losses, so many people sacrificed their lives, Gekko Hoshino said in a low voice, my credit is very important to the clan. Those clan members who lost their families also need more compensation. If it were my parents, they would support me too. Han boy, thank you. Looking at Gekko Han, 1,000 words of gratitude finally turned into a simple and heartfelt thank you. Just as Moonlight Han said, the family's current situation made it impossible for him to refuse Moonlight Han's kindness. It's what I should do. Uncle Hoshino, now that I've finished talking, I'll take my leave, Moonlight Han said, turning to leave. Han boy, move into my house, Moonlight Hoshino said, watching Moonlight Han's departing figure. No, Uncle Hoshino, I won't trouble you. Hey, it is still young, Moonlight Han said, walking out of Moonlight Hoshino's house. Watching Moonlight Han's departing figure, Moonlight Hoshino opened his mouth again, but the words he wanted to say ultimately remained unspoken. Yes, Moonlight He-Eight was still young, only 4 years old, and Moonlight Han's powerful strength and bloodline limit would surely attract the attention of many malicious people and enemies. If Moonlight Han lived here, Moonlight He-Eight would become the target of those people to blackmail Moonlight Han. I actually got here without even realizing it. At the entrance of the Konoha Ninja Academy, Moonlight Han looked at the school gate in front of him, somewhat emotional. Yet, where else can I go besides here? With a self-deprecating laugh, Moonlight Han strode into the Ninja Academy, walked to the swing he used to sit on in the playground below the teaching building, and sat down, then continued to sink into a daze. I will definitely beat you this time. Give up. You can't win. You're simply not suited to be a ninja. He's not unsuitable to be a ninja. He can't be a ninja at all. He can't even use the basic rebody techniques. Moonlight Han sat on the swing for an unknown amount of time. A group of students, led by 2 teachers, walked out of the teaching building and onto the playground. The students laughed and joked loudly, and the booming, confident voice of Might Guy and the mocking voices of their classmates could be heard. Teacher Momoki, isn't that Moonlight Han who just graduated this year? It really is Moonlight Han. In front of the students, one teacher looked at Moonlight Han sitting on the swing, lost in thought, and said to another teacher. They all remembered Moonlight Han, a very hard-working student, almost as diligent as Might Guy, but with very poor talent. Although he could use the basic rebody techniques, he wasn't much better than Might Guy. However, Moonlight Han's theoretical knowledge was excellent, and he wasn't mischievous at school, making him a relatively well-behaved and likable student. Coupled with the recent rumors that Moonlight Han was Konoha's #1 genius, there was more discussion about him at school, and the teachers' impressions of him deepened as a result. However, the teachers scoffed at the rumors. As teachers, they knew Moonlight Han's talent best. Moonlight Han, Might Guy's ears perked up immediately. Despite the surrounding noise and the mocking voices, he still heard the teacher's name. Ignoring the students around him who were laughing at him, he immediately looked around. Moonlight Han. The next moment, Might Guy spotted Moonlight Han on the swing under the tree in the playground, and his expression immediately became excited. He shouted excitedly at Moonlight Han from afar. He hurriedly pushed his way through the surrounding students and ran towards Moonlight Han. You bastard, you bumped into me, I'm going to teach you a lesson later. Might Guy's behavior immediately aroused the dissatisfaction of a large number of students. Guy, hearing the voice calling his name, Moonlight Han looked up in confusion, looked at Might Guy running towards him, and shook his head with a self-deprecating smile. Yet, this is the Ninja Academy. Chapter 88 Might Guy 2. Han, I'm so glad you're back alive. My comrade on the road of youth really didn't die. Might Guy hugged Moonlight Han tightly, crying and sobbing. Behind him, it was as if a tidal wave was rising and falling. Disgusting, that hot-blooded idiot, so shameful. Not far away, the students' disgusted voices rang out, and even the 2 teachers couldn't help but put their hands to their foreheads, feeling too ashamed to face anyone. Guy, looking at Might Guy, who was hugging him tightly and crying, Moonlight Han clenched his fists. The confusion and sadness in his heart had been swept away by the strong urge to beat up Might Guy. Han, let's have our 100th match. The next moment, Might Guy released Moonlight Han, took a few steps back, wiped the snot and tears from his face with his sleeve, and pointed at Moonlight Han with passionate shouts. Might Guy is challenging a ninja. He's asking for death. Might Guy's shout immediately shocked the students behind him. They had all seen the Konoha headband on Moonlight Han's forehead. Even as a Jinan, he was someone they, still students, couldn't challenge. Come on. Looking at the passionate Might Guy before him, Moonlight Han's sorrow was temporarily dispelled. He and Might Guy formed a ninja hand seal, opposition seal, and assumed their stances. Han, you must have become stronger on the battlefield, but I won't give up, Might Guy shouted, charging towards Moonlight Han. His speed had reached the level of a newly graduated ordinary Jinan. He was on par with the Moonlight Han without his template. Come on. Watching Might Guy charge towards him, Moonlight Han smiled, temporarily silencing his T-800 skeletal robot template and blood robot template. He also roared and charged at Might Guy, without canceling. His nearly 1-ton weight alone could overwhelm Might Guy. Bang bang bang. The next moment, the two were wrestling. Although there were some taijutsu techniques, it looked more like 2 children wrestling. The entire training ground fell silent as the two wrestled. Ignoring their speed and strength, their fight didn't even qualify as a mere clash between novice ninjas. It looked like 2 ordinary children squabbling. Watching Might Guy and Moonlight Han fight, the 2 Chunin instructors' faces turned extremely grim. Had they painstakingly taught them for 4 years only to produce such scum? And Moonlight Han, who had already graduated, was just as bad. The 2 of them were utterly disgracing the Konoha Ninja Academy. Let them fight. This is friendship between 2 children. Just as the 2 Chunin instructors were about to intervene to stop the fight and prevent them from further disgracing the entire Konoha Ninja Academy, an aged voice rang out from their side, stopping them. Hokage-sama, I'm sorry to have made you laugh. Hearing the aged voice, the two Chunin instructors immediately turned to their side and respectfully greeted the third Hokage, who had arrived unnoticed, their faces filled with shame. The Ninja Academy's reputation had been utterly ruined by Moonlight Han and Might Guy. The surrounding students all lowered their heads, feeling utterly ashamed to have such a classmate. Compared to the teachers and students, the third Hokage, watching Might Guy and Moonlight Han wrestling, smiled as brightly as a rotten persimmon. This was Moonlight Han's bond, one would lead to many more. His decision had indeed been right. The third Hokage hadn't known Moonlight Han was at the Ninja Academy when he arrived. He had come to find a new teammate for Moonlight Han, and now he had his first choice, the best choice. Huff, huff. 10 minutes later, a bruised and battered Might Guy lay panting on the ground, saying, "Lost again." Double the training today. Moonlight Han, equally bruised and battered, lay beside Might Guy, gazing at the school sky, lost in thought once more. The two of them simply ignored the onlookers. Ahem, Might Guy, Moonlight Han, hurry up and greet the Hokage. Seeing the two who had finished their fight lying there on their own, the Chunin teacher's face was completely embarrassed. He quickly coughed a few times and spoke up. Hokage, hearing the Chunin teacher's words, Might Guy and Moonlight Han quickly got up from the ground and respectfully greeted the third Hokage together. Han, now that you're back, relax in the village, the third Hokage said to Moonlight Han with a kind smile. You are both the new generation of Konoha's seedlings, and also Konoha's, Hokage, Han. The clan head wants you to go to the hospital right away. Just as the third Hokage was about to give the two a long lecture, a Moonlight Clan ninja suddenly appeared. He first greeted the third Hokage, interrupting his long lecture, and then, panting, anxiously said to Moonlight Han. Third Hokage, something urgent may have happened. Please allow me to take my leave, Moonlight Han said to the third Hokage. Go ahead, the third Hokage said with a smile. Let's go, Moonlight Han said to his clansmen who had come looking for him, and hurriedly ran out of the Ninja Academy. At the same time, Moonlight Han reinstalled the T-800 template and the Blood Nanobot template. Black substances flowed across Moonlight Han's bruised and swollen face, and his wounds quickly healed, leaving no trace of injury. Moonlight Han's speed also noticeably increased. I must work even harder. Seeing Moonlight Han's significantly increased speed, Might Guy, lying on the ground, burst into tears, shouting passionately. Then you have to do your best, he's very strong. Seeing this, the third Hokage said to Might Guy with a smile. Where there are leaves, the fire will never die. You are all the new generation of Konoha? Whoosh, a dark figure appeared beside the third Hokage, whispering in his ear. The third Hokage stopped his long speech, his expression rapidly changing, showing both joy and worry. Let's go too. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Moonlight Gale Awakens Bloodline Limit. At the entrance of Konoha Hospital, Tsukikage Shino paced anxiously back and forth, his gaze repeatedly sweeping across the street outside the hospital, filled with urgency. If it weren't for the inappropriate location, he would have looked more like someone standing outside a delivery room. Han boy, over here. Upon seeing Tsukikage Han and a clansman rushing towards him, Tsukikage Shino immediately shouted, waving vigorously. What's wrong? Seeing Tsukikage Shino, Tsukikage Han rushed to him, asking sternly. This isn't the place to talk, come with me. Tsukikage Shino didn't answer immediately, but instead grabbed Tsukikage Han's hand and hurried into the hospital. After leading Tsukikage Han into the hospital, Tsukikage Shino led him through the hospital corridors, turning left and right, until he arrived at a private ward. Tsukikage Heiei lay asleep on the only bed in the ward. Tsukikage Hoshino and 3 elderly elders of the Tsukikage clan were already there, each with an anxious and worried expression on their faces. Elders are not the same as clan elders, they are highly respected senior members of the clan. Han boy, you've finally arrived. Seeing Yu Guangshi pulling Yu Guanghan in so hurriedly, Yu Guangxingai immediately rushed over, his face full of anxiety. Several other clan elders also anxiously gathered around. Shi, go and guard the door, one of the elders said to Yu Guangshi. Yu Guangshi immediately went to guard the ward door and closed it. Uncle Xingai, what happened to Jiffen? Did someone attack Jiffen? Do you know who it was? Looking at Jiffen sleeping on a hospital bed, Yu Guanghan asked with a grim face, believing that someone targeting him had attacked Yu Guangjifan. No. Upon hearing this, Moonlight Hoshino shook her head, then whispered to Moonlight Han, "It's Hay-8 who awakened his bloodline limit. He was brought here with a high fever and unconsciousness, and he's only just stabilized. Han, we can't hide Hay-8's awakening of his bloodline limit from you. I'm worried someone might try to harm him. If Hay-8 hadn't been in a high fever and unconsciousness, Moonlight Hoshino wouldn't have wanted to bring him to the hospital." Bloodline limit. Upon hearing this, Moonlight Han was momentarily stunned, understanding Moonlight Hoshino's meaning. This was a good thing, a bad thing, and a troublesome thing. If it were just an ordinary bloodline limit, everyone wouldn't be so nervous, but with their own precedents and achievements, Hay-8's awakening of a new bloodline limit would definitely cause considerable turmoil, especially since Hay-8 is only 4 years old. It would likely attract the attention and murderous intent of many, including some people in the village, some families, or even the entire village. If not handled properly, they might have to abandon Hay-8. If you don't understand this, you can leave a comment. The 3 major clans of Konoha are examples, especially the Uchiha and Senju. No wonder Tsukikage Hoshino was so anxious to send him here. As the strongest member of the Tsukikage clan, he was needed to deter those with ill intentions. Only he, within the Tsukikage clan, possessed the strength to make them wary. The Tsukikage clan was, after all, just a small clan, and Tsukikage Hoshino was merely an ordinary jonin. Moreover, the Tsukikage clan had suffered heavy losses, its strength less than half of what it used to be, making it insignificant in the eyes of some. Before Tsukikage-han arrived, those people wouldn't have taken Tsukikage Hoshino or the Tsukikage clan seriously. Although they might be wary of Tsukikage-han, without his presence, they would certainly be aggressive. Facing these people, Tsukikage Hoshino had to tread carefully. But with Tsukikage-han present, it was different. Even if Tsukikage-han didn't say a word, just standing there, his powerful strength would make those with ill intentions think twice before speaking or acting. This gave him more leeway. After all, Moonlight Han's kill count of over 3,000 wasn't just boasting, it was a real number. The corpses were still concentrated in Konoha's enemy corpse storage area. Even a single one of Konoha's 3 major clans didn't have that many people, let alone all the ninja Moonlight Han had killed. Moonlight Han's importance to the war was self-evident. Although he was only 12 years old, his strength was already enough to influence the balance of power. This was extremely important during this war, and even the higher-ups and the Hokage had to give Moonlight Han some face, not being foolish enough to push him to the opposite side. The 3 major clans also absolutely didn't want to engage in a death struggle with Moonlight Han. However, Moonlight Han wasn't worried about this. He knew he didn't actually have a bloodline limit, instead, he had a technological template system. Moonlight Hay-8, on the other hand, awakened the transparent release. Because of his example, others were probably more likely to have preconceived notions, assuming that Moonlight Hay-8's awakened bloodline limit was the same alchemical bloodline limit as Moonlight Han's. Even Hoshino Tsukikage probably thought so, otherwise he wouldn't have been in such a hurry to come to see him. Hokage-sama, a respectful call came from outside the ward from Tsukikage Shino. This was a reminder to the person inside. Shino, no need for formalities. I heard that Hoshino's child, Hay-8 Tsukikage, collapsed, so I came specifically to visit him. The 3rd Hokage's voice rang out from outside the door. Hearing the 3rd Hokage's voice outside the ward, Hoshino Tsukikage and several clan elders visibly tense up. The 3rd Hokage had definitely received the news and rushed over. It was time to make a decision. Uncle Hoshino, it's better for the Hokage-sama to come first than some others. After all, the Hokage is the leader of the village. Besides, Hay-8's awakened bloodline limit might be different from mine. Has the test report come out yet? Tsukikage-han whispered to Hoshino Tsukikage. Hearing this, Hoshino Tsukikage was momentarily stunned, about to ask another question. Creak, the door to the ward was pushed open by Tsukiko Shino, and the 3rd generation walked in. Looking at the people in the ward and Tsukiko Hay-8 on the bed, he smiled and said, Hoshino, and Han-kun, I heard that Tsukiko Hay-8 fainted, so I rushed over to see if I could be of any help. The 3rd generation's words were clear. He asked you if he could help, not just to visit Hay-8. Whether he could help or not depended on Tsukiko Hoshino's answer. Hokage-sama, suppressing his doubts, Tsukikage Hoshino led everyone in greeting the 3rd Hokage before saying, Thank you for your concern, Hokage-sama. Hay-8's condition has just stabilized, and he's asleep. Hay-8 awakened an unknown new bloodline limit. The test results aren't out yet, but Han said it might be different from his. Oh, upon hearing this, the third Hokage paused for a moment, then smiled broadly and said, whether it's the same alchemical bloodline limit as Han's, Konoha will have another excellent child like Han. Under the Hokage-sama's guidance, Hay-8 will surely become a worthy and outstanding Konoha ninja, Tsukikage Hoshino said with a smile, stating his position. Lord Danzo, Lord Kaoru, Lord Kadoya, outside the door, Tsukikage Shino's voice rang out again. Tsukikage Shino, how is Hay-8's condition now? Danzo's voice came from outside the door. Thank you for your concern, sirs. The situation has stabilized now, a voice rang out from outside the door, which was then pushed open by Tsukikage Shino. Lord Danzo, Lord Kaoru, Lord Kadano, seeing the three men enter, Tsukikage Hoshino once again led everyone in greeting them. No need for formalities. Seeing this, Danzo smiled and said, continuing, Hoshino, did the medical ninja tell you how long it would take to determine what bloodline limit Hay-8 has awakened? The third Hokage suddenly interrupted Danzo before he could finish speaking. He didn't give Danzo a chance to continue. This was also a reminder to the three who had just entered that Hay-8 had awakened an unknown new bloodline limit, and whether it was the same as Hay-8's was still uncertain. The medical ninja didn't tell me. Hearing this, Tsukikage Hoshino shook his head. Hoshino, Danzo, being a cunning old fox himself, knew exactly what the third Hokage was thinking. Regardless of what the third Hokage said, getting Hay-8 into his hands first was the safest course of action. Hay-8's bloodline limit is different from mine, Moonlight Han said, interrupting Danzo. This drew everyone's attention to Moonlight Han. Hearing Moonlight Han's words, Danzo swallowed back what he was about to say. His gaze also fell on Moonlight Han. My bloodline limit has many obvious characteristics. I haven't seen any similar characteristics or other characteristics on Hay-8, Moonlight Han said, his eyes instantly turning into red sensory electronic eyes. At the same time, Moonlight Han rolled up his sleeve, revealing the veins on his arm, which were dark blue-black. This was because Moonlight Han's blood contained a large number of black blood nanobots. Seeing this, an elder quickly and gently pried open Moonlight Hay-8's eyelids, but his eyes were those of a normal person. Another elder rolled up Moonlight Hay-8's sleeve, and his veins, like those of a normal person, were dark blue-black. Seeing this, Danzo temporarily swallowed back what he wanted to say, no longer in a hurry to speak. However, they didn't exchange any pleasantries before leaving, choosing instead to wait for the test results. Even the two advisors temporarily suppressed their thoughts. If Moonlight Hay-8's bloodline limit was ordinary, it wouldn't be worth offending Moonlight Han. They were still hoping to recruit Moonlight Han into their camp. If they rashly took Moonlight Hay-8 away, the third Hokage would use that as a reason to deprive them of the opportunity to obtain Moonlight Han. This chapter has been revised for a long time. Chapter 90 Confusion. Time ticked by amidst everyone's waiting in polite conversation. Hokage-sama, the test results are in. Half an hour later, an Anbu member entered the ward with the test report and handed it to the third Hokage. A root ninja also entered, but he didn't have his report. Clearly, the third Hokage had sent the Anbu to the testing center before his arrival, and Danzo had obviously done the same. Taking the report from the Anbu, the third Hokage's initially joyful expression quickly changed, replaced by a fleeting look of disappointment. Although the change in his expression was brief, everyone present, even those who weren't elite ninjas, were adept at reading people. Even Gekko Han had the experience from his past life and the ability to observe the subtle changes in the third Hokage's expression. This is a bloodline limit that allows for invisibility. Hay-8 will need to develop the specific abilities himself, the third Hokage said, his tone betraying a hint of disappointment, as he handed the report to Gekko Hoshino. Danzo's gaze fell upon the root ninja, who nodded. Although he hadn't received the test results, he had witnessed a test and already knew the contents. Upon receiving the root ninja's reply, Danzo and his two advisors couldn't hide their disappointment. Han boy, after reading the report, Gekko Hoshino handed it to Gekko Han, his eyes filled with both relief and disappointment. As a father, he hoped that Hay-8 could awaken the same bloodline limit as Gekko Han and achieve the same success. However, he also knew that if Hay-8 awakened the same bloodline limit as Gekko Han, it would bring numerous troubles and dangers, even threatening the clan's future. Especially since Hay-8 was only 4 years old, unlike Gekko Han who had already grown to a level that commanded respect. Since it's a new bloodline limit, and one that allows invisibility, Let's call it transparent escape. It signifies something invisible to the eye. After reviewing the test report, Moonlight Han said with a smile, directly defining Moonlight Eight's bloodline limit. With him protecting her, the others should give up any ideas. After learning that Moonlight Eight's bloodline limit wasn't the same as Moonlight Han's, the powerful figures lost interest in continuing the conversation. After a few insincere, pointless words, they left. Since they were both new bloodline limits, it wasn't impossible for them to be different. 2 days later, on the third day after Moonlight Han and his men returned from the battlefield, the streets of Konoha were lined with white mourning clothes. People wore sorrowful expressions, holding white flowers, and spontaneously headed to the memorial stone on the west side of the village. Today was the village's designated day to mourn the fallen heroes. The burial took place in the cemetery, not at the memorial, and it's impossible for so many people to be buried there anyway. Also, the protagonist's parents died in battle, but their bodies weren't brought back to Konoha. The sky was overcast today, as if weeping for the fallen heroes. Before the memorial, people dressed in black kimono stood in somber silence. Sobbing could be heard from the crowd. These were the relatives and family members of the fallen heroes. Today, we bid farewell once again to the heroes who died in battle for our village. 1,440 heroes have left us forever. You all sacrificed yourselves to protect Konoha. Your spirits will live on forever. Before the memorial, the third Hokage faced the crowd, his voice low and sorrowful as he delivered his eulogy. Behind him, tens of thousands of ninjas and villagers bowed their heads in grief, their sobbing growing louder. People know war brings pain. They hate war, so why do they still wage war? In front of the memorial, in the second row, Moonlight Han murmured to himself, lost in thought. Despite his mature mind, Moonlight Han couldn't understand why people waged war, even though it was only started by a minority. Could personal gain truly outweigh the loss of loved ones? Han. Time passed unnoticed, and a call roused Moonlight Han from his reverie. Hokage-sama. Looking up, he saw the third Hokage standing before him, looking at him with kindness. The mourners had dispersed, leaving only Moonlight Hoshino with him. You're confused about why Tsunagakure started the war, aren't you? Looking at the still confused Moonlight Han, the third Hokage asked kindly. During the morning, the third Hokage had noticed Moonlight Han's unusual state. After the morning ended, he stopped Moonlight Hoshino from trying to wake Moonlight Han, only speaking to him after everyone else had left. Moonlight Han must be guided onto the right path, onto the path that benefits the village. And now is the best opportunity. Yes, Moonlight Han nodded upon hearing this. He asked, people clearly know that war brings pain. The Second Shinobi World War was only 10 years ago, and many people have experienced this pain. But why, when everyone hates war, do we still start wars? The question you're asking is the same question in many people's hearts, the third Hokage said, placing his hand on Moonlight Han's head. However, our purpose in participating in war is to protect our families behind us, to protect our comrades in the village from harm. This is why everyone hates war, yet we still participate in it. So many heroes are willing to sacrifice themselves, and that's why we win wars. If we don't stand up, then it will be our families, comrades, and friends who are sacrificed. We participate in war to protect. Upon hearing this, Moonlight Han pondered for a moment, looking at Moonlight Hoshino. Yes, at least our reason for participating in war is to protect. Han, you are a smart child. The third Hokage nodded with satisfaction, patting Moonlight Han's head again. He said, those who sacrifice their lives also hope that the living can soon overcome their grief and live better lives. Your original Jinan squad has all perished, and the village has decided to assign you a new Jinan squad. Come to the Hokage's office tomorrow to meet your new teammates and new teacher. Simply telling Yu Guanghan to protect someone wasn't enough, there were more people for him to protect. Yes, Yu Guanghan nodded in response. After thinking for a moment, he added, Hokage-sama, I want to choose my own Jinan squad. The third Hokage nodded and said, of course. Come to the Hokage's office tomorrow and choose the squad you want to join, but you can only join those squads that are short of members. Although Yu Guanghan's suggestion was somewhat unexpected, the third Hokage actually hoped for it. The squad he originally planned to assign Yu Guanghan to was a combination of several factions, which didn't reassure him, but he couldn't refuse either. Now that Yu Guanghan had proposed choosing his own squad, it was better. No, I want to join a Jinan squad that will graduate this year. Yu Guanghan shook his head. Is it the Jinan squad that's graduating this year? Not the Jinan squad that's already graduated. Gecko Han's words greatly surprised the third Hokage, forcing him to confirm again. Yes, it's the Jinan squad that's graduating this year. Hearing this, Gecko Han confirmed, I need some time to carefully understand my bloodline limit and the Hayate issue. I'm still a little worried. Alright. Hearing this, the third Hokage nodded, agreeing with Gecko Han's idea. However, don't tell anyone about this yet. I understand, Hokage-sama. Gecko Han nodded. Just a heads up, the protagonist's mindset will change several times. This is part of the protagonist's growth process. Want to see I obey? Leave a comment to decide. And there's also the Jingang Chuan. Chapter 91 The Thief and the Master Thief. Gecko Han wants to choose his own Shinan team. In the Hokage's office, Danzo felt utterly humiliated upon hearing the third Hokage's words. He had spent the last few days meticulously selecting a suitable genius to team up with Gecko Han, hoping to guide and even control him through this connection. But now the third Hokage was telling him that Gecko Han wanted to choose his own ninja team. Yes, this was Gecko Han's request yesterday, and I agreed. The third Hokage nodded. Sarutobi, why didn't you discuss this with us first? Kaoru Uchiha asked, her face full of displeasure, even addressing the third Hokage by his surname. There were only a handful of qualified people to be Gecko Han's teacher. The Sannin had already been excluded due to their own reasons, and Sarutobi, being the Hokage, along with Danzo and his two companions, had also been excluded. Danzo had been vetoed by Sarutobi, and Danzo had paid a heavy price to persuade Midokado Hamura to give up. Now, having finally become Gecko Han's teacher, the third Hokage's words had stripped him of his qualifications. Which Jinan class will he join? Danzo asked with a grim face, feeling there was still a chance to salvage the situation and making some preparations in advance. He didn't say. He said he needs some time to recover. Considering he just came from the battlefield, I agreed. Hearing this, the third Hokage replied with a smile. HMPH, upon hearing this, Danzo immediately snorted coldly, stood up, and said, Sarutobi, Gecko Han is only 12 years old now, his mind is not yet mature, but he has great strength. We must keep him firmly under control. If some people with ulterior motives lead him down the wrong path, it will be a double-edged sword for the village. After saying that, Danzo turned and left the Hokage's office. Sarutobi, after Gecko Han chooses his Jinan class, you must inform us immediately. Just as Danzo said, Gecko Han absolutely cannot be led down the wrong path by people with ulterior motives. Otherwise, we will absolutely not agree. After Danzo left, Kaoru Uchiha and Hamura Midokado also stood up and said. They left the Hokage's office together, at the route base. Immediately gather information on all Jinan squads, including those who went to the battlefield. Don't miss a single one, and make sure it's detailed. Upon returning to his route headquarters, Danzo immediately issued this order to his route ninja subordinates. He wouldn't give up control of Gecko Han. Why all Jinan squads, and not those short-staffed? Because he feared the third Hokage might try something underhanded again, in the dead of night, during a time of stealth and thievery. Under the Hokage rock in the darkness, two figures, using the surrounding buildings and the darkness as cover, stealthily approached a large, brightly lit building. In the sky, 4 DJI drones monitored all heat sources around the sneaky figures, preventing detection. Lord Han, are we really going to do this? Kimura Takuya asked Gecko Han, somewhat trembling. He couldn't help but be trembling. This wasn't just any civilian building. It was a building crucial to the entire Hidden Leaf village. I've made up my mind. Hearing Kimura Takuya's hesitant words, the all-black-clad Moonlight Man gave a firm answer. But, what if the village finds out we did it? Kimura Takuya still tried to persuade him further. No need to say more. Moonlight Man raised his hand to interrupt Kimura Takuya, saying, I've made up my mind, and this is the only thing I can do now. Since the battle at the Techi Bridge, all his men except himself had been injured, and he felt embarrassed to let the wounded continue to recharge his energy. Therefore, he hadn't replenished his energy points much. On the way back, he only replenished 30,000 energy points for self-defense. After returning to the village, his men all went home, and apart from replenishing his own energy points, no one came to replenish his. Even now, he only had a little over 40,000 energy points. And now, the battlefield situation was unclear, but definitely not good. With the Sand Village betraying him and starting another war, the Iwe Village continuing its fierce fighting, the Land of Lightning potentially making moves at any time, and the land of water also needing to be guarded against, plus the rate of ninja casualties clearly exceeding the rate of replenishment, he might have to go back to the battlefield at any moment. He couldn't wait until he was back on the battlefield to replenish his energy points. That might be too late. Even disregarding the battlefield, he had to be wary of certain people in the village. If he were to fall into someone's trap, his 40,000 plus energy points would be far from enough. Even after transforming into Megatron once, it would barely be enough for him to escape. What? Resisting? That would require even more energy points. Moreover, his current energy storage limit was 5 million points, which wasn't easy to replenish. He was still hoping to level up. That's why Moonlight Han had so hastily come up with this terrible idea. Tonight's target, Konoha's power plant, to steal electricity. And because it was Konoha's power plant, there were guards inside, so he couldn't just go in, pump it up, recharge, and leave. He couldn't even be discovered, which was why he had brought in Kimura Takuya, a Jonin. This matter shouldn't be delayed any longer. Let's act now, Moonlight Han said. Yes, Kimura Takuya could only obey. After donning his gas mask, he quietly slipped into the building in front of him. Although terrified, Kimura Takuya understood Yu Guanghan's predicament. After all, Yu Guanghan always relied heavily on lightning-released ninjas for reinforcements during major battles. Having secured Yu Guanghan's support, he couldn't afford to give up halfway. Fortunately, while Konoha's power plant controlled the entire village's electrical system, it wasn't a highly secretive or crucial location, unlikely to be a primary or even secondary target. Furthermore, being inside Konoha at night, the defenses were lax. As a Jonin, Kimura Takuya found infiltration easy. Soon, faint blue smoke began to drift from the building. In the darkness, this blue smoke was extremely difficult to spot. Almost there, watching the smoke rising from the window, 3 minutes later, Yu Guanghan also slipped into the building. Sleep smoke bombs are not very harmful to the human body, are odorless, and even beneficial for those with insomnia. However, its effect is very powerful, capable of quickly rendering someone unconscious. Using it at night when everyone is asleep will go unnoticed. Prevention is simple, wear a gas mask. Sir, everything is ready. Upon entering the building, Kimura Takuya immediately greeted him, his voice muffled behind the gas mask. Go to the power room and turn on all the machines. Moonlight Han instructed, then headed towards the power cables. In Naruto, there are refrigerators, so there must be a power room. Furthermore, Konoha, as a ninja village, has its own independent power supply system, not relying on external electricity. Chapter 92 The New Jonin Class. Which damned bastard did this? A furious roar echoed through Konoha's power plant at dawn. Moriban stared at the 18 severed cables on the ground, his face beyond black, the veins on his forehead practically bulging. These 18 cables supplied electricity to almost the entire village of Konoha, and this was the 7th time they'd been cut this week. Even stealing electricity wasn't done like this, and every night at that. I'm going to find the Hokage and demand an explanation. Whoever this person is, the Hokage can't tolerate this. Growing increasingly enraged, Moriban roared, heading straight to the 3rd Hokage. He had reported the electricity theft from Konoha's power plant to the 3rd Hokage on the very first day. After all, a power outage throughout Konoha couldn't be hidden. However, after reporting it to the 3rd Hokage merely pondered for a moment, then told him that the Anbu would thoroughly investigate, and that he shouldn't interfere. Even if the thieves returned, he shouldn't make a sound, and that was it. 6 days of thorough investigation yielded no results. Instead, the village continued to be burglarized every night for the next 6 days. The Anbu didn't even bother to make a show of themselves. The next day, they were stuck repairing the cables themselves, restoring power for the day, only to have the cables cut again that night. They considered catching the thief themselves, but unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. The culprit was at least a regular Jonin, and their group of Chunin and special Jonin were simply no match for them. However, they were certain that the 3rd Hokage knew who the thief was, and that he was protecting him. Meanwhile, the culprit causing the nightly power outages in Konoha was currently in the 3rd Hokage's office. It must be said that the power station supplying the entire village was quite powerful. After 7 nights, it had successfully charged Moonlight Han's energy points to 4 million. Moonlight Han was even hoping that further upgrades would bring something that would make people want peace. Ahem, the 3rd Hokage's deliberate cough pulled Moonlight Han's wandering thoughts back to reality. Sorry, Hokage-sama, I suddenly thought of something and got a little distracted, Moonlight Han said apologetically, pulling himself back from his reverie. It's alright if you space out, just make sure there aren't any more power outages. We've had a lot of complaints about the nighttime power outages lately, which are affecting the village's production, the third Hokage said with a smile. He was also annoyed by Moonlight Han, but he couldn't be too direct. He could only give him a light tap. The most likely culprit for the power outages in Konoha was none other than the man in front of him. However, he didn't know if Moonlight Han had any accomplices. Moonlight Han had been very discreet. Even his suspicions about Moonlight Han were based on guesswork. Hokage-sama, I've been asked to select the Jinan today. I wonder who will graduate, Moonlight Han asked with a smile, quickly changing the subject. When the old fox talks about his weaknesses, unless it's something crucial, you absolutely mustn't answer along with him, or you might end up losing something. These are the graduating Jinan's files for this year. They haven't been assigned to classes yet. Hearing this, the third Hokage smiled and handed Yu Guanghan a thick stack of documents, probably more than 2,000 pages. The meaning was clear, let Yu Guanghan choose his own Jinan teammates. The third Hokage's purpose was simple, since no one was suitable to be Yu Guanghan's Jinan teammates, let him choose. Yu Guanghan would most likely choose teammates he was close to, ensuring a smooth relationship and strengthening their bonds. It also prevented malicious individuals from sabotaging things beforehand, such as someone who had investigated all the graduating Jinan. So many Jinan are graduating this year. Even Guy and Obito graduated early, and they're only 9 years old, Yu Guanghan exclaimed in surprise after looking through the documents for a while. Graduating earlier will allow them to grow faster, the third Hokage said with a smile. Are you planning to select these two as your teammates? The third Hokage had already anticipated Moonlight Han's choice of these two as his teammates that morning. After all, these two had the best relationship with Moonlight Han, and given his strength, it was possible he might want to protect them. No, they have their destined teammates, but that person isn't me. Hearing this, Moonlight Han continued flipping through the information, saying, teaming with me wouldn't be good for their future development. I hope they can achieve even greater things. Do you have any other options? Hearing this, the third Hokage frowned and asked, Moonlight Han's answer surprising him. He had expected Moonlight Han's thoughts to be the same as his own. After all, even though Moonlight Han was more mature than his peers, he was still a child. As for the selection, randomness is fine. Who you team up with doesn't matter. Fate is sometimes random, nobody knows what will happen, Moonlight Han said with a smile, closing the thick stack of documents and randomly pulling out 2 consecutive pages. Haha, what a fine saying about fate being random, the third Hokage laughed upon hearing this. Not only had Danzo and the others wasted their efforts, but his own had also been largely wasted. He had anticipated Moonlight Han's choice and had already researched the possible candidates. He hadn't expected Moonlight Han to pull this stunt. But it didn't matter, after all, he was the Hokage. There would be plenty of opportunities in the future to interact with, understand, test, and strengthen their sense of belonging to Konoha. Third Hokage, my team leader hasn't been assigned yet, has he? Moonlight Han asked the third Hokage, looking at the pulled-out documents. If the team leader's strength was average, who would lead whom was uncertain. Minato Namikaze will be your mentor. Upon hearing this, the third Hokage smiled and said, Minato is an elite Chunin, powerful and experienced. He should be able to give you some good guidance, helping you grow faster. Moreover, Minato is young and easygoing, and the age gap between you isn't too large, so you can get along better. He's a good choice. Besides, you know him. What the third Hokage didn't mention was that, most importantly, he was a true disciple of Jiraiya, his grand disciple, and a commoner ninja without any powerful family connections. Hokage-sama, Minato-senpai is indeed a good choice, but I already have a direction for my future development. I also heard that Takuya Kimura will be leading a Jinan squad this time. I know Takuya Kimura better, and he knows me well. I think he's more suitable to be my mentor. If possible, I hope the Hokage can appoint him as my Jonin instructor, Yu Guanghan pleaded. Hearing this, the third Hokage frowned again, puffing on his cigarette. He certainly knew Takuya Kimura. He was indeed very familiar with Gecko Han, or more precisely, Gecko Han's former subordinate. Kimura's strength and talent were far inferior to Minato Namikaze's. He was merely an ordinary Jonin, though fortunately, he was also a commoner ninja. More importantly, Takuya Kimura was highly likely an accomplice in Gecko Han's theft of electricity. If Gecko-han really chose Kimura, he might let loose. Gecko-han's choice of Kimura must have been purposeful. This choice allowed Gecko-han to maintain control of the team's discourse, and as Gecko-han's former subordinate, Kimura wouldn't disobey him on certain matters. Lord Hokage, it's not that Minato Namikaze isn't good enough. Among these Jonin, besides Lord Orochimaru, there's no one better than Minato Namikaze. But the situation is different now, the war isn't over yet, so I don't think they're suitable to be my team leaders, Gecko-han said, looking at the third Hokage. If it were peacetime, I would definitely choose one of these two without hesitation. Namikaze Minato-senpai is a powerful ninja, as is Orochimaru-senpai, but they both have areas where they are needed more, and I also have areas where I need to be needed more. While Kimura Takuya is inferior to Namikaze Minato-senpai in many ways, choosing Kimura Takuya has the advantage of offering something neither Namikaze Minato-senpai nor Orochimaru-senpai possess. We can both go where we are needed, avoiding a waste of combat power. Alright, hearing this, the third Hokage could only nod. Indeed, as Gecko-han said, from the perspective of choosing sides, Namikaze Minato was the most suitable for Gecko-han, with impeccable lineage. However, from the perspective of war, Kimura Takuya was indeed more suitable for Gecko-han than Namikaze Minato. After all, Gecko-han and Namikaze Minato's fighting styles were different. Although Kimura Takuya wasn't as impeccably lineated as Namikaze Minato, he was still a commoner ninja, not bad either. Moreover, this choice was beneficial to the current war. While Kimura Takuya's role as Gecko-han's mentor might lead to Gecko-han becoming more self-centered, given Gecko-han's strength, such self-discipline was inevitable. Giving in to Gecko-han's wishes wouldn't be a bad thing. What he needed more was to help Gecko-han build stronger bonds with Konoha. Most importantly, Gecko-han was already a very powerful ninja and played a significant role in the war, not just an undeveloped genius. This was the main reason the third Hokage relented. He also needed to respect Gecko-han's choices and ideas, rather than imposing a rigid arrangement, which would only cause Gecko-han's dissatisfaction. Chapter 93 The Clash Before the Great Battle 2. First, the chapter title is wrong. Second, there aren't many daily chapters, they're mostly transitions and setups. I'd like to say that it's now available for purchase, and I want to thank all the readers who have supported this book. I've been writing for almost 3 years now, so I'm considered a relatively reputable author. You can rest assured that you'll add it to your collection. Even if the sales aren't great, I absolutely won't abandon the book. I'll give you a proper ending. I'm an experienced author, and while I can't guarantee it won't be toxic, I can at least guarantee it won't be extremely toxic. A traditional Chinese medicine formula can usually counteract that. Third, my next book will be a multiverse type. If you like my books, you can follow the author or join my QQ group. The group number is 807,990,030, and the group name is Crazy's Readers Group. There will be frequent polls there. You can also tell me what you'd like to see, and I can try to fulfill your requests. This book won't be long, the plot will move quickly. Currently, the only world is Naruto, but I might insert some side stories from other worlds, like YAY, because I'm not happy about watching certain movies. Finally, I hope everyone can support the official version. Please vote, please tip, please support. With 40 pairs of Byakugan eyes responsible for scouting and finding enemies, and Moonlight Han capable of long-range attacks, the enemy has no chance to get close. It can be said that following Moonlight Han is very safe, unless surrounded by 10 times the number of ninjas. Chapter 94 Altair. Altai, what kind of person do you think our other teammate is? Is he a kid a year younger than us? If he's younger than us, will he hold us back? If that kid holds us back, will we fail the exam and not graduate? If we don't graduate and are sent back to school, it will be so embarrassing, and my clan will be so ashamed too. They'll definitely punish me, and what if they don't let me continue being a ninja? What should I do then? In front of the memorial stone, Hyuga Shinosuke, dressed in a white Hyuga clan kimono, kept babbling to the white-haired girl beside him, acting like a chatterbox. The two were classmates, both only 10 years old, still quite different from graduating Jinan, so naturally they were very worried. Your worries are completely unnecessary. You should be worried about whether we'll hold us back. Hearing this, the white-haired girl with twin tails coldly shook her head and said. His gaze swept over the other Jinan squads gathered there, especially the squad led by a blonde young man. He looked at his 3 Jinan, who had already assembled, with envy in his eyes. Because there were over 1,000 Jinan squads graduating this year, 7 or 8 squads had chosen to gather at the memorial monument. Among them were Kakashi's squad led by Minato Namikaze, and a Jinan squad led by an unknown Chunin. Without exception, these Jinan squads consisted of 2 recent graduates and 1 Jinan, led by a Chunin or Jonin. This configuration allowed these newly graduated rookies to quickly adapt to missions on the battlefield, and facilitated their rapid growth. As for returning to the Ninja Academy for retraining, this was wartime, and the village was severely lacking in ninjas to fill the gaps on the battlefield. The village had already graduated most of the students from the 2 or 3 graduating classes ahead of schedule to accelerate their growth. How could they easily send them back for another year? Even if you wanted to go back, you wouldn't have the chance. Those who fail the assessment, unless they are truly terrible and not even qualified to become cannon fodder ninjas, will be reassigned by the village under some pretext, given a simple assessment, and sent to serve as cannon fodder alongside the Chunin. The real geniuses, however, have already been assigned to the ranks of powerful ninjas. However, graduation doesn't mean immediate deployment to the battlefield. While there's a shortage of manpower on the battlefield, it's not yet the most urgent time. Therefore, graduating Jinan will be given a period of time to adapt to missions before being sent to the battlefield, allowing them to grow as much as possible. Even cannon fodder should play a role to avoid wasting years of education. Altai, Hyuga Shinosuke, a figure suddenly appeared before the 2 like a ghost, saying seriously, "The assessment will now begin." Wait, hearing this, Hyuga Shinosuke quickly raised his hand to interrupt, saying, "Teacher, 1 person from our class hasn't arrived yet. And shouldn't we introduce ourselves before the assessment?" Hyuga Shinosuke had done his homework beforehand. The other Jinan classes had already introduced themselves after the class assignments yesterday, and the assessments were all in groups of 3. Why is it different here? First of all, when the classes were assigned yesterday, 1 person was missing, although many senior Jinan assigned to Jinan classes were also absent. While other classes' teachers met and then left with their students to introduce themselves, their teacher simply said to meet here today and then disappeared without even saying his name. Kimura Takuya's behavior made Hyuga Shinosuke very uneasy. He thought that Kimura Takuya didn't want to lead the Jinan class, so he was too lazy to even introduce himself, and might eliminate them without giving them any chance. As for the missing Jinan, Hyuga Shinosuke assumed it was a former student of the Jonin in front of him. "You can introduce yourselves after you pass the test. Now, if you defeat me, you'll pass," Kimura Takuya said. As for the other person who hadn't arrived, Kimura Takuya simply ignored the issue. He wouldn't dare let Gekko-han participate in the test. 5 minutes later, looking at the 2 lying on the ground, Kimura Takuya smiled, his tone no longer stern. He announced loudly with a laugh, "You've shown me your perseverance. You've passed." This kind of test was Gekko-han's idea. He didn't want 2 teammates who were prone to giving up. "Passed." Hearing Kimura Takuya's words, Hyuga Shinosuke was completely dumbfounded. Kimura Takuya's test of them wasn't as gentle as his tests of other Jonin or Chunin. He basically crushed them, constantly beating and attacking them. However, the 2 were unwilling to admit defeat, repeatedly getting up and charging at Kimura Takuya. If it weren't for the shame of being expelled from the Ninja Academy and returning to his clan, Hyuga Shinosuke would have given up long ago. He even thought several times that Kimura Takuya simply didn't want them to pass the test, didn't want to become their instructor, or look down on them, hence the harsh test. Not only Hyuga Shinosuke thought this, but some of the instructors and Jinan watching also thought so. Some even felt sorry for Shinosuke and Altair. The test was too harsh. However, some wise people remained silent. If Kimura Takuya truly didn't want them to pass, he could have announced it the first time he defeated them, instead of letting them repeatedly get back up and challenge him again. They passed. Hearing Kimura Takuya announce their passing, not only was Shinosuke stunned, but everyone around was also dumbfounded. Now that they'd passed, why be so strict? Even if he wanted the test to be strict, it was excessive. However, everyone was genuinely happy for the 2. Shinosuke and Altair's perseverance had moved many of them. "Minato-sensei, they passed. That's wonderful." Not far away, Obito Uchiha was overjoyed. "Idiot." Kakashi glanced at Obito with disdain. "What did you say, you fish eyes?" Obito, with his sharp ears, immediately jumped up, glaring at Kakashi. "Idiot." Kakashi looked at Obito with disdain again. "Come and fight me if you dare, you middle-parted brat," Obito roared, rolling up his sleeves, ready to fight. Hearing Obito's angry words, Kakashi also rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight. The middle parting was something he absolutely didn't want to recall. However, Kakashi, Obito, and Rin had known each other since their school days, but Kakashi graduated early. Now, Obito and Rin had graduated, and coincidentally, Kakashi was now teamed up with Obito. Although Kakashi was a chunin, he was alone. There was some behind-the-scenes manipulation involved. After all, Kakashi was a very famous genius. Stop it. Seeing the two about to fight, Minato Namikaze quickly pulled them back. Minato-sensei. Did they have another teammate? Why isn't he here? Doesn't he have to participate in the assessment? Rin Nahara asked, voicing a question that had been nagging at her. Kakashi had participated in Minato Namikaze's assessment with him, and Kakashi was a chunin. Hearing Rin's voice, Obito immediately fell silent, and Kakashi also looked at Minato Namikaze. Their teammate is quite a figure. And all three of you know him, Minato Namikaze said with a smile upon hearing this. Having already received inside information, the reason he hadn't left with Kakashi and the others was to catch up and let the two teams interact. Even his choice to come here for the assessment was at the behest of the third Hokage, as was the decision of another Jonin-led Jinan team. A remarkable figure? And we know him. Upon hearing this, Obito frowned immediately, as did Rin. Could this remarkable figure be even more remarkable than Kakashi, a genius chunin? Kakashi's expression turned grim. He had already guessed who it was. Chapter 95. It really was him. We know each other. Upon hearing this, Obito was even more bewildered, racking his brains but unable to recall who it could be. His brows furrowed in a deep frown. Kakashi, already certain of his guess, scanned his surroundings. Kakashi had a gut feeling that if it was that person, then he must have already arrived. That powerful, seemingly powerless individual. What Kakashi didn't know was that Minato Namikaze had been searching for Gekko Han's hiding place since they arrived. He knew Gekko Han would come because these two teammates and the team leader were chosen by Gekko Han himself, but unfortunately, he hadn't found him. Sensei, who is our other teammate? At this moment, Shinisu Kyuga also asked the question that had been nagging at him. Although Altair had remained calm, he was also very concerned about who his other teammate was. Shinisuke's question also drew the attention of Minato Namikaze's team and the other Jonin team that had stayed behind. Obito, Rin, and the other three Jonin were curious, while Kakashi, Minato Namikaze, and the other Jonin wanted to know where Gekko Han was hiding. "It's me," a voice rang out behind Shinisu Kyuga, drawing everyone's attention. Behind Shinisuke stood the memorial stone. From the grass beneath it, a mercury-like substance seeped out, gradually transforming into a human figure. The mercury's color changed, as if coloring a silver puppet, eventually becoming Moonlight Han, dressed in casual clothes. "It's you?" Altair looked at Moonlight Han with surprise. He had left a deep impression on her. The blood-stained sand ninja headband scattered before the memorial stone, his drunken state, all vividly remembered. Shinisuke, on the other hand, was curious. Although he didn't know Moonlight Han, his alleged abuse of power during the assessment intrigued him. Han, Obito and Might Guy stared wide-eyed, finding it hard to believe they would see Moonlight Han here. Even Rin was surprised. Having often played with Obito, she was quite familiar with Moonlight Han. It really is him. Seeing Gekko Han appear, Kakashi's usually deadpan eyes showed a hint of annoyance. Compared to Obito and others who had never been on the battlefield, Kakashi knew much more about Gekko Han. Whether he initially sought to understand Gekko Han to complete Jiraiya's mission, or after being defeated by Gekko Han, he had investigated him thoroughly. Especially after Gekko Han's reputation surpassed his father's, he meticulously investigated everything he could find. This was a man only 3 years older than him, whose strength was no less than that of a cage. Gekko Han's bloodline limit was particularly formidable. Gekko Han's name even surpassed that of his father, Konoha's White Fang. But Gekko Han's battle achievements were the most terrifying. In just over 3 months, he had single-handedly killed over 3,000 ninjas. It could be said that such a strategic figure shouldn't be here, much less appear as a Jinan. As a genius, from the moment he guessed that Gekko Han was the last Jinan, he felt that there was a reason why Minato Namikaze hadn't taken them away after the assessment. The two sides must have had a lot of contact. "Let me introduce myself, Gekko Han. I don't have any particular likes or hobbies, and I hate war," Gekko Han said with a smile, casually sitting down in front of the memorial stone. His gaze fell on Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair. You're being too perfunctory. Besides your name and your dislike of war, we know nothing else, Hyuga Shinosuke scoffed. My name is Kimura Takuya, a Konoha ordinary jonin. I'm skilled in lightning release, earth release, and swordsmanship. My favorite food is sori, I hate natto, and my dream is to live a peaceful life, Kimura Takuya said with a slight smile after Gecko Han's introduction. Hyuga Shinosuke, I also don't have any particular likes or hobbies, and I hate war too, Hyuga Shinosuke said with a smile, completely copying Gecko Han's self-introduction. That's too perfunctory. What about your likes, dislikes, and dreams? Reintroduce yourself, Kimura Takuya said with a smile, but his gaze turned dangerous. A hint of murderous intent even flashed in his eyes, though this was just to scare Hyuga Shinosuke. Sensing Kimura Takuya's murderous aura, Hyuga Shinosuke immediately became obedient and quickly reintroduced himself. My name is Hyuga Shinosuke, a member of the Hyuga clan, 9 years old this year. My favorite food is boiled dumplings, my least favorite food is fish sculptures, I hate being alone, and my dream is to become a powerful ninja, Altair said coldly. Just a name, nothing else. Yours is perfunctory too. But never mind. You'll get to know him eventually. Hearing Altair's introduction, Kimura Takuya's gaze truly turned dangerous this time, but after receiving a look from Moonlight Han, he changed his tone and said with a smile. Actually, Moonlight Han and Kimura Takuya had already seen the information on the two of them. Teacher, this isn't fair. Why can they all introduce themselves like that? Shinosuke Hyuga immediately shouted. I am fair, Takuya Kimura said calmly. Han, congratulations on finding your new teammates, Minato Namikaze said with a smile as he walked over with Kakashi and the other two. Han, congratulations, Obito also said with a grin to Gecko Han. He had heard that Gecko Han's former teammates and teacher had all died on the battlefield, and that Gecko Han was missing, which had worried him for a long time. Brother Han, Rin greeted Gecko Han very politely. Minato-senpai, you've had a hard time taking care of this problem child Kakashi and the city at Obito. Gecko Han smiled slightly, directly igniting the conflict. Han, what did you say? Who's the problem child? Obito jumped up and down. Kakashi remained silent, but his impression of Gecko Han worsened. I'm talking about the one who jumped up, of course, Gecko Han replied elegantly, his gaze fixed on Obito without any attempt to hide it. Rin watched the two dickering with a smile. This familiar scene would surely end with Obito crestfallen. Han, Kakashi, let's have a hot-blooded battle, a green figure rushed over, shouting loudly. Behind Might Guy, his companions Genma Shiranyu and Ebisu, along with their instructor, were also approaching. Boring, Kakashi's lips twitched as he looked at the hot-blooded idiot running towards them. His hair hadn't even grown back yet. I propose we all have a get-together today, Minato Namikaze said with a smile. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Jinan's Mission. Today's mission is to find a cat. Quickly memorize the mission details and objective, then set off. This is your first mission as Jinan, so I hope Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair will perform well. Han and I won't help you. On a bridge in Konoha, Kimura Takuya handed a mission sheet and a photo to the two men, smiling as he spoke. Moonlight Han, meanwhile, lay leisurely on a large tree by the bridge, lazily basking in the warm sun. Yes, teacher. Upon hearing this, Hyuga Shinosuke immediately stood at attention, took the mission sheet and the cat's photo, and carefully examined them with Altair. Facing their teacher, the two were still quite reserved, unsure of what to say besides missions and studies. Teacher, we've memorized it. 2 minutes later, Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair nodded to each other in confirmation before speaking to Kimura Takuya. Let's go. We must find it before dinner tonight. Seeing that the two had diligently read the mission details and memorized the cat's characteristics within 2 minutes, Kimura Takuya took back the mission sheet and photo, smiling as he gave the order. Yes, Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair shouted formally, running together towards the west of the village. The mission intelligence indicated the cat had gone missing near the dumpling shop on the west side of the village. Let's go, keep up. After Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair left, Gecko Han smiled at Kimura Takuya. his lazy figure lying on the tree trunk vanishing without a trace. With the T-800 skeletal robot as his skeleton and the T-1000 liquid robot as his flesh, Gecko Hand's speed was no less than that of an ordinary Chunin. Although there was a severe shortage of ninjas on the battlefield, newly graduated ninjas weren't thrown directly onto the battlefield. Instead, they were given targeted missions to accumulate experience, although this process was very short and very busy. Just as I expected. It's a root ninja. At lunchtime, Gecko Han looked at the root ninja who is currently interacting with Altair and his companion, rubbing his head and saying with a headache. Of course, the root ninja didn't openly approach the two. Instead, he transformed into a kind, elderly woman using a transformation technique. However, transformation is still a type of jinjutsu. Whether it's a jinjutsu cast on someone else or on oneself, its ultimate essence is still jinjutsu. It couldn't fool Moonlight Hand's electronic eyes at all, and Moonlight Han wouldn't even know what kind of jinjutsu they were using. It was Kimura Takuya who told Moonlight Han the root ninja's transformed appearance. "Sir, should I find a reason to drive that root ninja away?" Kimura Takuya asked quietly. As a clever Konoha Jonin, he knew very well the root ninja's purpose in contacting Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair. Similarly, he knew what kind of place Root was. "No, you're not suitable to show your face, and you can't afford to offend Root. I'll go." Moonlight Han shook his head, and his figure flashed, disappearing directly behind the tree where he was hiding. Kimura Takuya continued to observe from the shadows. Gecko Han was right. He was just an ordinary Jonin, and couldn't afford to offend Root, even though he was Gecko Han's nominal leader Jonin, but actually his #1 underling. "You two, come with me." Gecko Han appeared in front of Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair and immediately said. Then he turned around and directly exposed the root ninja's identity. "Put away your clumsy transformation jutsu and go back." Yes, hearing Gecko Han's words, the root ninja was stunned for a moment, then responded, cancelled the transformation jutsu, and left in a flash. Although he could disobey Gecko Han, Danzo had already clearly ordered them not to offend Gecko Han. Moreover, he knew how terrifying Gecko Han was. He was a figure that even Tsunagakure and Iwagakure feared. Without 300 to 500 ninjas, no one would dare to face him. "Han-senpai, that was Enbu just now. Han-senpai, you can actually command Enbu." Hyuga Shinosuke was astonished as he watched the root ninja leave. Altair also looked at Gecko Han with great surprise. "Come with me right now. You didn't even realize you were being watched? Your vigilance is terrible. If I hadn't come out any later, they probably would have already found out the details of the mission," Moonlight Han said sternly, heading directly west of the village. Seeing Moonlight Han's displeasure, Hyuga Shinosuke immediately shut up and quietly followed Moonlight Han westward with Altair. Both of them were filled with anxiety, knowing they were about to be reprimanded. After all, they now understood what they had done wrong. Jonin need to accumulate experience, and this was one aspect of it, the secrecy of intelligence and the ability to identify the enemy. That Enbu was probably testing them. This was also why Kimura Takuya had taken away the mission sheet and photos after informing them of the mission. If Moonlight Han knew what the two behind him were thinking, he would definitely say they were overthinking it. Indeed, Konoha did use this method to test Jonin, allowing them to gain experience in these areas. Especially now that there was war, in order to help these newly graduated Jonin grow up quickly and enter the battlefield, such tests would be more frequent and numerous. However, this wasn't the reason why Yu Guanghan gave the two a bad look. Because those weren't ninjas testing lower-ranking ninjas, they were dangerous individuals with ulterior motives. If Yu Guanghan hadn't intervened, the two might have unknowingly sold themselves to Danzo. They hadn't walked far when Yu Guanghan stopped in an open area. Whoosh! Kimura Takuya instantly appeared before the three, his face so dark it could drip water, but he still nodded to Yu Guanghan first. This made Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair involuntarily swallow hard, their hearts pounding with tension. They knew how serious their mistake was. They were ninjas, and they absolutely could not leak mission information. It was clearly written in their ninja code of conduct. Don't be so serious. It's the lowest ranking D-class mission, the mission details aren't important. It's normal for them not to be alert. That's not the point, Yu Guanghan said with a smile, looking at Kimura Takuya's expression. He had just been putting on a show for that root ninja. Phew, upon hearing this, Kimura Takuya let out a deep breath and looked at Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair, saying, even for a low-level mission, you're not allowed to leak mission details, teacher. We were wrong, Gekko-han interjected, and Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair quickly seized the opportunity to admit their mistake. Be careful of anyone who contacts you. That ninja just now wasn't from the Anbu. He was a ninja from Konoha's root, a secret organization of Konoha. He didn't contact you to extract information about this mission. Nor was he testing you, Gekko-han said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair's eyes widened. Then why did he contact us? After launching a few drones, Moonlight Han continued with a smile. Root ninjas and Anbu are different. They have no emotions, no freedom, even their smiles are fake. They're more like machines, and their lives aren't in their own hands. What do you think their purpose is in contacting you? Maybe they want you to join them. Hearing this, Hyuga Shinosuke shuddered, shaking his head vigorously, saying fearfully, who wants to join them? Sometimes it's not up to you, Moonlight Han said with a smile. He must have a reason for contacting us, and he'll definitely contact us again in the future, right? Altair stared intently into Moonlight Han's eyes and asked. And I don't think that reason is because of me and Hyuga Shinosuke, otherwise they would have contacted us when we were at the Ninja Academy. You're smarter than I thought, Moonlight Han looked at Altair in surprise. Chapter 97 An Invitation from Hinata. Hearing Moonlight Han's tacit admission, Altair turned her gaze to Kimura Takuya. Unfortunately, the teacher remained silent. Seeing that Kimura Takuya wasn't going to answer her, Altair didn't press the matter, it was pointless. She now understood that her assigned teacher and senior Jinan were no ordinary individuals, and that they were being targeted by Root, a secret Konoha organization she'd never heard of before. Why are they targeting us? Hyuga Shinosuke asked. You'll find out later. From the moment you joined this team, you were destined for greatness, Moonlight Han said with a smile. Now, let's continue with the mission. We're waiting for your mission rewards to eat, and you don't have much time left to gain experience. Make the most of this time and complete as many missions as possible. Master, is it really alright to tell them about Root? After Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair left, Kimura Takuya asked worriedly. Root was a secret organization of Konoha? Even many Jonin didn't know of its existence, and the things Root did absolutely couldn't be exposed to the public eye. It would be terrible if the two of them spread this word. Root has already started contacting them. It's good to tell them to be more cautious, better than them falling into a trap. Anyway, they'll find out soon enough that they're being targeted. As for leaking Root's information, they probably won't, Gekko-han said with a smile, continuing to secretly follow Hyuga Shinosuke and the other two. In any case, we should be more careful in the future. Kimura Takuya quickly caught up with Gekko-han and reminded him. He knew very well that Root's goal was to completely control Gekko-han, just like they controlled the other members of Root. However, unlike controlling others, Gekko-han already possessed a powerful and intimidating strength, and they were worried that Gekko-han would turn against them. This was also why Danzo gave up on poaching Hay-8 after Gekko-han appeared following Hay-8 after Hay-8 awakened his bloodline limit. Gekko-han and Kimura Takuya followed Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair, watching the two of them constantly searching for the cat's tracks. It must be said that the Hyuga clan, with their Byakugan, had a real advantage in finding targets. Around 2 p.m., the two of them found the cat that was their target. Back then, the three members of Moonlight Han's Jinan team spent an entire day searching. They only encountered the cat on its way back at night. The next mission is to help Aunt Flower take care of her child for 2 hours, starting at 4 in the afternoon. After completing the mission, we can have dinner at the foot of the Hokage building. Kimura Takuya announced the new mission. Taking care of a child. Upon hearing this, Hyuga Shinosuke's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This is a good mission. Just a heads up, not only do you have to take good care of the child, but there might be an attack during this mission. Looking at the two frowning, Moonlight Han said with a smile, not giving them a chance to ask further questions, and disappeared in a flash. Whoosh, Kimura Takuya tossed a mission scroll to the two and also disappeared in a flash. It's just the two of us on another mission, Hyuga Shinosuke sighed. What about teamwork? They don't even work together, how can they cultivate team spirit? Anyway, we need to do this mission seriously, Altair said, continuing to think. I feel like Gekko-han Senpai is the real teacher of this team, Shinosuke Hyuga couldn't help but say to Altair. Although Takuya Kimura was their teacher, it seemed that Kimura was the one who prioritized Gekko-han. No matter what Gekko-han said, Kimura would agree. Hearing this, Altair fell into thought. Shinosuke Hyuga's words reminded her of the first time she met Gekko-han, when hundreds of blood-stained sand ninja headbands were neatly arranged in front of the memorial stone. Those sand ninja headbands were all battle badges. Even when mourning fallen comrades, they wouldn't just leave the headbands lying there. But at that time, only a drunken Gekko-han was there. She remembered that Gekko-han had said that he came from the battlefield. And the contact with Rude all indicated that this Gekko-han was definitely not an ordinary person. Sir, I ran into Hyuga Tokugawa when I was receiving a mission in the Hokage's office. His daughter is celebrating her full moon, and he's invited our class to the celebration. It's 4 days from now at 3 p.m. Hidden in the shadows. Kimura Tokugawa pulled a gold embossed invitation from his robes and handed it to Yu Guanghan. Gold embossed. This invitation is extraordinary. Does the third Hokage know about this? Hearing this, Yu Guanghan took the invitation, frowned, and asked while examining it. Hyuga Tokugawa wouldn't use a gold embossed invitation, nor was he qualified to use one. Clearly, it was an invitation from the Hyuga clan. Tokugawa's daughter's full moon celebration was just an excuse to invite him. It was given in front of the Hokage, and the words were spoken in front of the Hokage, Kimura Tokugawa said. He also knew this invitation was extraordinary. However, Tokugawa had done a good job, inviting him in front of the Hokage. Then let's go, said Yu Guanghan, handing the invitation back to Kimura Tokugawa so he could put it away. Given the current situation on the battlefield, they don't have much time left to grow. Especially me, I'll definitely be sent to the battlefield sooner, Yu Guanghan said. Konoha's tests for these newly graduated Jinan were simple. Under the premise of war, the so-called tests were both to increase the difficulty of the missions for these newly graduated Jinan and to give them experience. Doing things properly was considered passing, and even if mistakes were made, the supervising instructors would be responsible for guidance and reprimands afterwards. 3 days passed quickly. During those 3 days, Kimura Tokugawa would take on 2 or 3D rank missions each day, and then, like Yu Guanghan, he would hide and watch Hyuga Shinosuke and Altair complete these missions. When the two made mistakes, Kimura Tokugawa would come out to correct them and impart his experience. At night, he would teach them how to climb trees or wade through water, accelerating their growth. If root ninjas came to make contact, it was Gekko-han who would step in, either taking the two away or letting Root leave. Today, the Hyuga clan, the Hyuga brothers Hisashi and Hisashi, arrived early at the clan's main gate at 2:30 p.m., accompanied by Hyuga Tokugawa, Hyuga Ryu, and Hyuga Mi. You've arrived. As it approached 3 p.m., Hyuga Hisashi spoke, tidying his meticulously arranged kimono once more. The others also quickly adjusted their kimonos, looking very proper. Teacher, Uncle Tokugawa invited you too. Let me tell you, his daughter is so cute. I don't want to let go of her once I hold her. Hyuga Shinosuke's excited voice drifted over from afar. Chapter 1 of today. Chapter 98 Alliance. Lord Han, Lord Tokugawa. When Gekko-han and his entourage were about 30 paces from the Hyuga clan's gate, Hyuga Tokugawa, Hyuga Takayuki, and Hyuga Mi quickly approached and respectfully greeted them, bowing politely as a sign of respect. Tokugawa, congratulations on the birth of your princess, Kimura Tokugawa said with a smile, handing him a gift. It was a set of exquisitely packaged tableware. Thank you, Lord Tokugawa. Hyuga Tokugawa bowed again in thanks, while Hyuga Mi accepted the gift from Kimura Tokugawa on his behalf. I'm sorry, Tokugawa, I was in such a hurry when I came that I didn't prepare a gift, Gekko-han said with an awkward smile. It was indeed embarrassing to come empty-handed. Thank you, sir. It's my honor that you came, Hyuga Tokugawa said, without a trace of anger. Lord, Hyuga Shinosuke, standing nearby, was completely stunned. What had his uncle Tokugawa just called Gekko-han? Lord, this didn't make sense, absolutely not. Lord Han, Lord Tokusa, my brat hasn't caused you any trouble, has he? Hyuga Ryu said with a smile, while giving a fierce glare to the shocked Hyuga Shinosuke. This also eased Gekko-han's embarrassment. No, Shinosuke is very diligent. He and Altair have been handling most of the recent missions, which has allowed me to slack off quite a bit, Gekko-han said with a smile. This is for their own good, Lord, so they can gain more experience, Hyuga Ryu quickly replied. Speaking of which, the root ninjas have tried to contact them several times in the past few days, but I thwarted them each time. You need to be careful, The root ninjas won't just give up like this, Gekko-han said softly. Yes. Please rest assured, Lord, no Hyuga clan ninja has joined root yet, Hyuga Ryu said. He was confident in this, and the clan would absolutely not allow such a thing to happen. Han-kun, Takusa-kun, welcome to the Hyuga clan. Please come in. When Yu Guanghan and his group were about 5 steps from the Hyuga clan's gate, Hyuga Hizoku and Hyuga Hizashi stepped forward to greet them politely. Although they weren't yet the clan heads, they were their sons. And they had stated they were guests at the Hyuga clan. Hizashi-kun and Hizashi-kun are too kind, Yu Guanghan said with a smile, following them into the Hyuga clan compound. The Hyuga clan was one of Konoha's 3 great clans, a very traditional and conservative family, with very authentic traditional customs and rules. Led by Hyuga Hizoku, Yu Guanghan and his group didn't go to the Hyuga Tokugawa's house, but went directly to the Hyuga clan head's residence. Although this banquet was supposed to be a celebration of Hyuga Tokugawa's daughter's full moon, from the beginning, it was a banquet with a distorted meaning. Upon entering the Hyuga clan head's residence, following Hayashi to the main hall, they saw 2 people already kneeling. One was a middle-aged man in his 40s. This was the current Hyuga clan head, Hyuga Shoan, an elite jonin with near cage-level strength, and the strongest member of the Hyuga clan. The other was Gekko Hoshino. The hall was already set up with prayer mats. Besides the 2 already seated, there were 8 more, clearly prepared according to the number of people, no more, no less. It is truly an honor to have invited Konoha's killing machine and the Takusa jonin. Please, everyone, have a seat. Hyuga Shoan said with a smile as he rose from his kneeling mat upon seeing Hayashi led Gekko-han and his entourage in. Young Han, this is the Hyuga clan head, Lord Shoan, Gekko Hoshino introduced with a smile. It is my honor to be invited by the Hyuga clan, said Gekko-han. After the 2 clan leaders, Hyuga Shoan and Gekko Hoshino, sat down again, he took his seat on the futon next to Hoshino, while Hayashi sat on the futon next to Shoan. Seeing the 4 seated, Hyuga Hizashi and Kimura Takuya led the others to kneel down. The hierarchy was clear. A killing machine, sitting on the lowest futon, Altair looked at Gekko-han, lost in thought. He recalled the scene of their first meeting. After everyone was seated, servants immediately brought tea and snacks. One servant went to inform Lady Tokugawa, who had been waiting, to bring her child. Clan head Hoshino, Lord Han, I have received some news today and would like to meet you in the side hall. Hizashi, do not neglect the other guests, Shoan said with a smile after chatting for a while. Please, head of the Hyuga clan, go first, said Moonlight Hoshino with a smile. Led by Hyuga Shoan, Hyuga Hayashi, Moonlight Hoshino, and Moonlight Han followed him out of the main hall and headed towards the side hall. Watching the 4 leave the main hall, Hyuga Tokugawa became even more nervous, his palms clenched tightly. Hyuga Shinosuke, on the other hand, breathed a huge sigh of relief. When Hyuga Shoan was around, he didn't dare to breathe loudly. Recently, traces of some Kirigakure ninja have been discovered in the coastal areas. Kirigakure village is also getting involved. The news came back 2 days ago. In addition, the Land of Lightning has also gathered a large number of ninjas on the border of the Land of Rivers and the western border of the Land of Grass. After entering the side hall, Hyuga Shoan immediately reported the latest news on the war. The real war has only just begun. Upon hearing this, Moonlight Hoshino sighed. He asked Moonlight Han, what do you think? Moonlight Hoshino and Hyuga Shoan had already discussed this for a while. The village will definitely try to end the war with Tsunagakure before the Mist Village and Cloud Village get involved in this great battle, said Gekko-han. For this, even if it means paying a higher price, the village must deliver a thunderous blow to Tsunagakure, rendering them unable to fight any longer. That's right. Although the village hasn't made a decision yet, given the current situation, this is the most likely scenario. Sending more ninjas to the battlefield is now urgent. Because of the Mist Village technique, the Hyuga clan is also the most likely to be sent to the battlefield against the Land of Water. The Uchiha clan was also sent to the Land of Water battlefield. Hyuga Shoan nodded. Not only does the Tsunagakure battlefield need more ninjas to deliver this thunderous blow, but it also needs more ninjas to defend against the Land of Water and the Land of Lightning. The Iwa ninjas of the Land of Earth will certainly not sit idly by and watch Konoha easily defeat the Tsunagakure enemy. They will definitely attack with all their might. Judging from the current situation, the casualties in this shinobi world war will be terrifyingly high. Unless everyone stops fighting and makes peace. Gecko Han, who didn't understand what the two meant, also analyzed the future of the war along with their words. He quickly considered the two men's intentions. Therefore, Chief Xiangayan and I have decided to form an alliance between our two clans to overcome this difficult time together, said Yu Guangzhengai. This was why he was telling Yu Guanghan. In his heart, Yu Guanghan was the next chief of the Yu Guang clan. This is good for both our clans, Yu Guanghan nodded. The Yu Guang clan had already suffered heavy casualties, and they would continue to participate in the war. They truly needed a strong ally, and the Hyuga clan was arguably the most advantageous ally for them, their strong reconnaissance capabilities helping them avoid many dangers. The Hyuga clan will send a group of clansmen to act alongside the Yu Guang clan, led by Hayashi and Hizashi, said Hyuga Xiangayan. Hankun will apply to the third Hokage for this. It will definitely be approved. I will apply to the third Hokage when I select ninjas. Yu Guanghan nodded in agreement. Chapter 2 of today's text. Chapter 99 Hyuga Natsu and Miyako. Within half an hour, Gecko Hoshino, Gecko Han, Hyuga Hayashi, and Hyuga Shoyan, the current and next heads of the two clans, discussed the general details of the alliance, wrote an alliance agreement, signed their names, and pressed their fingerprints. A copy was kept on each side. When Gecko Han and the other three returned to the main hall from the side hall, Hyuga Tokugawa's wife had already brought their child, and everyone was playing with the adorable little guy. Hyuga Shinosuke, in particular, looked like a lovesick fool, practically drooling. Seeing the four of them emerge, Hyuga Tokugawa became even more nervous, but he managed to suppress his anxiety. Anko, bring the child to head Hoshino and Hankun first, so they can share in the joy, Hyuga Shoyan called out to Hyuga Tokugawa's wife, watching the lively crowd. Yes, head. Hearing this, Anko quickly brought the child to Gecko Hoshino and Gecko Han. Respectfully bowing slightly, she said, Lord Hoshino, Lord Han, the little one is so cute. What's her name? She's much cuter than my son was back then. Looking at the child Anko brought, Hoshino smiled kindly and reached out to play with her. Lord Hoshino, her name is Hinata Natsu, she's a girl, Anko quickly replied. The child didn't cry at all, but smiled happily and innocently. She's so cute. Han also reached out to see her, his expression not much better than Shinosuke Hinata's. Although he didn't act like a lecher, his obvious affection was evident on his face. Lord Han, she's a girl, cuter than boys, Anko said with a smile. Come here, let me hold you, Han smiled, clapping his hands as if asking a child if they wanted a hug. Lord Han, the child likes you very much, Anko said with a smile, handing the child to Han. Han took the child and happily played with her. Tokugawa, I quite like this child. I happened to forget to bring a gift today, so how about I adopt her as my sister? It would be a gift from me to the child, and I'd have another relative. Chief Hyuga Shoyan, what do you think? Holding Hyuga Natsu, Gecko Han happily played with her for a while before speaking to Hyuga Shoyan with a smile. Hyuga Tokugawa looked at Hyuga Shoyan nervously, afraid that he would reject the proposal. Actually, whether it was inviting Gecko Han not bringing a gift, or Gecko Han's last-minute decision to take on a disciple, it was all something Gecko Han and Hyuga Tokugawa had discussed together. Their goal was to help Hyuga Tokugawa's daughter, Hyuga Natsu, escape the fate of being separated from the family. It's a blessing for Xia to become Hankun's sister, and a testament to the deepening friendship between our Hyuga and Moonlight clans. Tokugawa, quickly thank Hankun on behalf of the child. But Hankun, that's a bit unfair of you. Hearing this, Hyuga Shoyan still smiled broadly, revealing nothing of his true thoughts. His last sentence had already shown that he understood Moonlight Hand's intention in recognizing her as his sister, and considering Hyuga Tokugawa's previous role as Moonlight Hand's subordinate, even showing some obsequiousness, it wasn't hard to guess what was going on. Nevertheless, he agreed. Thank you, clan chief. Thank you, Lord Han. Hyuga Tokugawa immediately bowed in gratitude, his heart filled with excitement. Thank you, Clan Chief Shoyan, for your kindness. I truly like this child. Moonlight Han breathed a sigh of relief. Don't underestimate the significance of recognizing a sister. It's a very important matter. Hizashi, go and fetch Tenshao's daughter, Miyako. Let the young people get to know each other first, Hyuga Shoyan instructed Hyuga Hizashi. Yes, upon hearing this, Hyuga Hizashi immediately went out. Hearing Hyuga Shoin's words, Gekko Han was startled, even feeling an urge to explode. He immediately looked at Gekko Hoshino, inwardly cursing him, thinking that he was being unfair, and these two clan leaders were even more unfair. Gekko Han remembered something Gekko Hoshino had been talking about but hadn't had a chance to tell him. This was also why Gekko Han had rarely returned to the clan since his return. Gekko Hoshino looked at Gekko Han with a "you can't hide it from me" gaze, a warning in his eyes, as if saying, "You were unfair when we just formed an alliance," crossing their bottom line. They gave you face and loosened their grip, so now you'd better accept it obediently. If you dare refuse, the Hyuga clan's reputation will be ruined, and Hyuga Natsu's future will be over. However, the smile on his lips betrayed him. Gekko Han's smile was stiff, his hands and feet were cold, and he felt a tremor in his heart, even a chill. A moment later, Hyuga Hayashi entered with a girl about the same age as Gekko Han. This girl, like the future Hinata, had long, dark blue hair, but unlike Hinata's shy nature, her expression was very confident, clearly indicating a strong-willed girl. Guess who this is based on? Hong-kun, clan chief Hoshino? Mieko is a genius girl in our Hyuga clan, Hyuga Shoin said with a smile. Then, turning to Mieko, he said, "Mieko, please greet clan chief Hoshino and Hong-kun." Upon hearing this, Hyuga Mieko immediately stepped forward and bowed, saying, "Clan chief Hoshino, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hong-kun, it's been a long time. It's so good to see you back safely." "What a polite child," Gekko Hoshino said with great satisfaction, his smile blooming like a flower. "Mieko, it's been a long time," Gekko Han said awkwardly, his eyes already searching for an escape route. Mieko was someone Yu Guanghan knew well, they were graduates of the same class. Yu Guanghan preferred to call her a tomboy rather than a girl. So Mieko and Hong-kun know each other? That's great. "Mieko, you should spend more time with Hong-kun in the future," Hinata Shoin said with a smile, completely oblivious to Yu Guanghan's awkward, stiff smile. "Yes, clan leader, Hong-kun and I are classmates," Mieko replied with a smile, gentle and polite. "Hong-kun, Uncle Tokugawa's little cutie is so well behaved. Be careful with your grip when you hold him," Mieko said, walking over to Yu Guanghan and gently instructing him on how to hold the child, showing no trace of her fierceness. "It's all an act. This woman isn't a good person when she's fierce." Looking at the gentle Mieko, Yu Guanghan kept reminding himself, his fake smile almost freezing. So even he has his moments of weakness. Shinisu Hyuga glanced at the stiff smiling moonlight man, secretly chuckling to himself. However, when he saw Mieko, his heart couldn't help but tremble. A separate point from today's third chapter, it's not impossible. The Hyuga clan, including Hanabi and Hinata, are the most obvious examples. Although their identities are special, the Hyuga clan wouldn't be foolish enough to completely offend a powerful friend. It mainly depends on the potential benefits. For example, in a marriage alliance between two clans, would they bring a caged bird along? Chapter 100 Back on the Battlefield 1. 3 days after forming an alliance with the Hyuga clan, Konoha held another war mobilization meeting. The meeting was held on the grass in front of the memorial monument, a choice that served both as a mobilization for war and a way to honor the fallen heroes, asking them to bless their comrades and descendants about to go to battle. In front of the memorial monument stood the first batch of Konoha ninja, a total of 2,500, all preparing to support the Kikyo Mountain battlefield. Among them were 1,000 Jinan, and over 600 newly graduated Jinan, many under the age of 12, the youngest being only 8. With the situation deteriorating, even Konoha's ninja numbers were stretched thin. The third Hokage stood beside the memorial monument on a platform created using earth release, delivering a powerful speech, the same old rhetoric, inheriting the will of fire, the responsibility of protecting the village, and some encouraging words. His speech was accompanied by shouts and cheers, as if everyone was giving it their all. Led by their respective instructors, the Jinan stood at the front of their classes, listening to the third Hokage's speech. Some children's faces showed excitement, while others were filled with fear. They either knew that war meant glory and fame, or they knew that war meant death and cruelty. "I can't believe I'll be back on the battlefield so soon. It feels like I've only been away from the battlefield for less than 2 weeks. This time, it's going to be the brutal battle of Kikyo Mountain." Standing at the front, Yu Guanghan looked at the third Hokage's long-winded and rambling speech before the memorial stone, his heart filled with emotion, his eyes constantly glancing around. Beside him were Hyuga Shinosuke, Altair, and their devoted teacher, Kimura Takuya. Not far away, Hyuga Mieko stood with her Jinan classmates, along with two other former classmates, Yamashiro Akiko and Saratobi Mei. Besides Mieko and her group, some of his classmates from graduation also stood among them. Among the crowd, Yu Guanghan also spotted Kirina Iyuhi and Anko Materashi, both recent graduates, aged 9 and 8 respectively. He also saw Aoba Yamashiro and Reikage Miyashi. Yu Guanghan didn't see Obito or Guy in the crowd. He knew Obito had already gone to the battlefield near Iwagakure with Minato Namikaze, while Guy was still in the village, relatively lucky and not involved in this brutal battle. Now, set off. Your loved ones in the village are waiting for you to defeat the Sans village and return safely. On the high platform beside the memorial monument, the third Hokage finally finished his long-winded indoctrination and encouragement. With the third Hokage's command, the 2,500-strong force finally marched off in formation, leaving the training ground where the memorial monument stood, entering the village, and crossing the streets. The streets were filled with villagers praying and sending off the departing ninjas. Han, you've been to the battlefield, tell us what it's like. After leaving Konoha's gates, Hyuga Shinosuke couldn't hold back any longer and asked Gekko-han. The surrounding Jinan all turned to look. The battlefield. It's a place where you'll die if you're reckless. Everyone's faces contorted with rage, and blood and corpses are the dominant colors there, Gekko-han said, then fell silent. He didn't know how to continue. Telling them about the cruelty of war now would undoubtedly damage the morale and confidence of these rookies who had never been to the battlefield. This wasn't good, it would kill them, because going to the battlefield was already unavoidable. Seeing that Gekko-han was silent, Kimura Takuya took over, admonishing, on the battlefield, you absolutely cannot act on your own. You must obey orders. You are not allowed to run away without a retreat order. You must remember every word your teacher says and everything he teaches. Han-kun, this time on the battlefield, we will fight side by side. Please take care of me from now on, Hyuga Mieko said, bowing as she approached Gekko-han. This time, she lacked her usual fierceness, and her face no longer held the confidence she once had. King Han, please guide us, Yamashiro Akitori and Saratobi Mei bowed to Yu Guanghan in unison. Although they were Jinan who graduated in the same year, as elites and seeds, they had never been to the battlefield, this was their first time. Let's all learn from each other, Yu Guanghan said, then fell silent again. Seeing that Yu Guanghan didn't want to speak, Mieko and the others didn't want to disturb him further, so they continued listening to Kimura Takuya's explanation of things to pay attention to on the battlefield, experiences that would help them survive. 10 days later, the support team finally arrived at the camp commanded by Orochimaru, where nearly 3,000 ninjas were stationed. Upon entering the camp, although there was a welcome, it wasn't enthusiastic. People died here every day, no one knew when they would die, and few had the time or inclination for such things. The main activity was to greet them, lead them to designated locations, set up tents, and then announce that they were awaiting further orders. Mieko's tent was pitched right next to Gekko-han's tent, surrounded by tents from the Hyuga and Gekko clans. For this reinforcement mission, Hyuga Hayashi brought over 30 ninja from his clan, while the Gekko clan, aside from a few who remained behind, sent almost all of their able-bodied members, 20 in total, including 3 newly graduated Jinan. Gekko-han, however, was immediately summoned to see Orochimaru. Lord Han, it's been a long time. Please sit down and we can talk. Orochimaru's hoarse voice rang out as Gekko-han entered Orochimaru's command post. Looking at Gekko-han, Orochimaru unusually showed a gentle smile and invited him to sit down. Lord Orochimaru, it's been a long time, Gekko-han said with a smile as he sat down on the futon. It seems you've moved on. I remember the first time I saw you, you were so cold, even your voice was devoid of emotion, Orochimaru said gently. With Han-kun's arrival this time, I'm relieved. How many men do you need? I'll allocate them to you. The war with Tsunagakure is finally coming to an end, Lord Orochimaru. Among the reinforcements this time, can all the Hyuga and Gekko clan members be assigned to my command? I need their Byakugan to show me their locations, Gekko-han said with a smile. Why not? Han-kun is the main force in this war. In addition, I will transfer all the lightning-released ninjas to your command, Orochimaru said with a gentle smile. Without the slightest hesitation, Orochimaru agreed to Gekko-han's request. Even though Gekko-han took all the Hyuga clan ninjas who came to provide reinforcements. No problem. Lady Chiao, on the other side, in Kakayo Castle, Raza found Chiao with a heavy expression. You have intelligence. Looking at Raza entering and seeing his heavy expression, Chiao already knew the answer. Yes, intelligence came in. Moonlight-tan is here, Rosa said. In any case, don't engage in direct combat lightly, Chiao said, sighing. Because of the protagonist's influence, the Battle of Kakayo Mountain was brought forward. Today's first chapter. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.